The story begins with an auction in another world standing in the grand hall. The young man heard how the next hero, Tsukuru Sumeragi, was being called. His profession is a chef, and he is a G rank. Everyone is waiting for the bet to be made by someone, in this case, the young man. After that, the presenter looked at the audience and said that no one was interested in him. Everyone was interested in talking about how dangerous their world is currently. No one was interested in this person, and no one wanted to pay attention to him. In their situation, the chef was useless, and it was just a waste of time. People said they had to do it quickly and move on to the next key. They didn't understand how it could happen, calling someone very useless for our hero. At that time, he stood in front of everyone trying to figure out what he had done wrong. After all, he was Tsukuru Sumeragi who worked as a chef. After cooking, everything was ready for today's menu prepared by the young man. 3 types of chicken fillet sandwiches boiled in vegetable salad, grape salad, potato pate, and boiled vegetables. Our hero spent a lot of time and energy cooking, but people's reactions were very bad. This was not the first time his efforts were in vain, but he thought to himself that he was not satisfied if he didn't have a true friend. They were all fair on the internet, and soon after he thought about it, a girl approached him, admiring the dish the young man had made, and said that Tsukuru was indeed a great chef. He was surprised, and the girl who smiled explained so many things. She seemed awkward, as people told her not to touch anything, so she could only stand and watch our hero be surprised that the girl was actually talking to him. Meanwhile, while our hero was chatting, the teacher greeted the students and told them that he would be leaving the staff room for a short while and would be back soon. Therefore, we had to remember to handle fire very carefully. She looked towards our hero's dish at that moment and admired how delicious it looked. And at that moment, the young man felt as if something was about to happen, thinking to himself and looking at the girl. Just then, a bright light shone and everyone tried to cover their eyes, trying to figure out what was happening. A moment later, they found themselves in a large room without realizing where they were. Our hero allowed the idea that this was indeed true, perhaps a famous transfer to another world. When they heard voices, they realized that there were people around them who had driven them into a circle, and a man was sitting on top, saying that he was the representative of the Kingdom Alliance, and his people called him the hero. They were brought to their world through his special ritual. Of course, our hero was surprised like everyone else, trying to figure out what was happening. Now they had to start testing their abilities to determine which kingdom they would belong to. Who would get it would be determined through an auction. The called hero would be sent to one of the 9 alliance kingdoms or one of the 6 countries. There are a total of 15 possible habitats. Their task is to destroy the raging demon king through the territory entrusted to them. When the auction started and people began to bid, the value started from 1 million and went up to 5 million. When it came to different students at that time, our heroes listened to all of this, seeing how he was finally called, and the person who gave him the card told him to touch this plate. When the girl did this, the hall exploded with applause in front of them. There was Suzuno Ichinose, her profession being a holy maiden and her rank being S because the girl was in great condition. The initial asking price was 5 million, and it reached 44 million after the auction. Our heroes were watching all of this. Now it was supposed to be their turn. They handed over a card, and the next one was Tsukuru Sumeragi, his profession being a chef with a G rank. The presenter asked them to place their bets, realizing that the hall was silent. That's when the presenter realized that no one was interested in this young man. That's when everyone started shouting that no one wanted to pay for him and it was just a waste of time. They had to hurry and move on to the next world. They were in danger. Everyone was very unhappy, so they started throwing paper from the stands towards our hero. Someone even threw a shoe at him and the young man stood in front of them all, trying to figure out what he had done wrong. The man explained to Mr. Sumeragi that from now on, he would continue on his own. He gave him a sword and some money, enough to live for a while, as he explained to him that they couldn't send him back to the world, so he had to do it, accept it as compensation. After he entered this gate, he would be transported to a random territory as explained by the man standing in front of our gate. The hero who received the compensation did not understand what kind of random world it was being discussed. The man told him that it was quite difficult for him to talk about it, but because the young man did not belong to any country at that time when he realized it. In other words, none of these countries wanted to accept him. But our hero did not say it out loud here. Talking about it, someone called him. And Ikinoze rushed towards him, trying to hold him back by saying that the girl could not go there, but he hoped so. They could still meet our hero, who realized at that time Ikinos had been bought by the Luxandil kingdom. He switched his gaze to the girl, thinking that if he was really lucky, then one day they would be able to meet. Of course, Ikinoze shouted like that. At that time, he would find our hero and they would meet each other. When he said goodbye to her, the girl asked him to say it too. Our hero, after saying it, there was nothing for a while and took his belongings, standing in front of the gate, taking him to a world he did not understand. All he had to do was agree with the girl and say the words because it wanted to switch. Our hero was, of course, told that they would see each other again standing in front of the gate. The young man hesitated a little, trying to carefully cross the threshold. The next time the old man's hand, who had just explained to him about this action, pushed him forward. He turned back to look at the young man's gaze and tried to figure out what it meant. But the next moment he had already done it, moved and fell straight into the thicket forest. Our hero understands that all of this is a lie, and the old scoundrel who accompanied him to the gate actually deceived him. Our hero entered the Baal forest. His name is Tsukuru Sumeragi. His profession is a first-class cook. The skills our hero possesses are the analysis of cooking ingredients, storage materials in front of him. The young man looked at the status plate. Now he understands what skills he has after reading it. The young man also has the following skills: Endurance 6, Magic 6, Strength 6, Instinct 6, Agility 6, Luck X. Our hero decides to try to use analysis. Using analysis, there is a large tree in front of our hero. This tree, which is several years old, grows in the mysterious forest, a place where there is no sign of people. Of course, the young man sees that there is no one around, and his analysis also tells him that it is inedible. After all, what our hero wants is to eat something that Tsukuru thinks for himself, that at least he can use his skill to make fire and distinguish what can be eaten and what cannot. First of all, he needs to find water and food, especially water, as our hero thought. But first, he decides that he still needs to look around in this forest. After looking around, he finds some delicious mushrooms that usually grown in this area. Since our hero is in the forest, the easiest way is to find mushrooms and cook them, and now it is necessary to send them to storage materials after he collects them, because as far as he knows, it should not be used there. He can always use it, and he doesn't believe everything is so simple because the young man still understands that he didn't stumble upon a monster. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw a mouse in front of him, thinking it was a giant monster. But the next moment when he picked up the sword, the young man realized how heavy the sword was. After all, this strange person knew that his profession was not fighting, but they still sent him to the cursed forest. Our hero was very unhappy, so he started screaming that he would do it, remembering the old man who saw him off and the other strange people who organized the auction and called them here. He would seek revenge as soon as he got out of this forest. And there he was, shouting, catching the attention of the cat, but then realizing that it wasn't a cat at all when he approached it while running away from this cat, which turned out to be a fierce monster. Our hero tried to figure out where his sword was, seeing it lying on the ground where he threw it. Our hero didn't throw it understanding that there might be something inside the forest that he could use because he only had mushrooms and berries on his back. The next moment, the young man realized that there was no way for him to escape the claws of the attacking cat. Flying past many trees, our hero fell, bleeding with a broken leg and unable to move. Our hero thought that he might die like this, but he couldn't give up. Revenge was the only thing on his mind, with tears streaming down his face. He didn't want to die because he had to teach them a lesson and seek revenge on all of them. At that moment, He remembered that he had spirit and also wanted to get revenge on this damn beast game. Our hero killed the toy he desired using as many lighters as he could. The cat started to burn, and the hero thought that maybe he could really burn it down because he was angry. However, he still decided to attack our hero, and the young man understood that he wanted to kill him to stop the skills beneath him. Our hero thought about what else he could have, and the young man prepared himself for the next attack. The cat flew into him, and the system informed him that the young man had leveled up a lot. Our hero's friend appeared on the window and told him about it. The only thing the young man thought about when he tried to move was that his whole body was injured, but he was still alive. He also wondered if he could kill the cat. The young man remembered that he had learned something before he lost consciousness, something like a water cannon. At that moment when he said it, water appeared in front of him and fell directly into his mouth. Our hero also knew that he could use healing water. In front of him, the young man saw a steak made of giant cat rib bones, a similar monster that had recently been hunting him. It was delicious and had the ability to heal wounds. Of course, if it weren't for our hero's current condition, he might have praised how tasty the steak was and tried to crawl towards it. The young man started chewing it, and as a piece entered his mouth, our hero felt his body starting to heal. He looked at his newly injured hand and broken leg. He saw that he had healed. The young man was surprised because he had completely recovered. Maybe he decided that he could still get out of this forest while his stats had increased. He was at level 123, and his skills included cooking, lighting fires, parsing, analyzing storage, adjusting water healing, water cannon, and searching for materials. All his stats had developed, and his advantage stamina D, magic D, strength D, intelligence D, agility D, dexterity X, ADM luck X. Our hero saw the Sword Reaper level 200, as he thought it was a man, but it turned out to be a monster. Tsukuru couldn't defeat it because the monster was level 200, higher than our hero's level. But he only cared about what he needed to eat, because there was nothing more important than food. The young man believed and used his cooking skills. He fried the meat of a big monster, a cat-like creature. He was also offered the skill of night vision. Our hero thought about how yesterday he was too injured to enjoy the taste, and then he heard about a new skill and tried to find out where cooking had such an effect. The next skill he learned was night vision. Our hero thought that this was a way to fry meat from the bones of a big monster, a cat-like creature. He can also learn how to accelerate in front of him, where there is a pole made from the thigh of a large cat-like monster. By practicing here, he can improve his agility. Additionally, he can make bets with the cross of this monster, feeling its presence and understanding that the effects vary depending on which part he applies his cooking skills to. Now our hero comprehends how it all works. In front of him, he sees a level 240 Boignon, and the more he eats, the stronger he becomes. He consumes a steak from the wild monkey's stomach, which grants him wood magic, and a steak from the wild monkey's shoulder, which gives him the skill to throw steaks. Our hero can also acquire air magic skills from a dark bat's place. He realizes that if he continues to eat their meat while progressing, he will become strong enough to seek revenge on those old people. Suddenly, a level 260 dark bat appears in front of him, which he plans to devour next. However, there is a pack of level 150 hyena in front of our hero. He notices that they use water springs and climb trees, making it impossible for him to defeat them if he goes down. There are too many hyenas, and they are vigilant of the tree's height. Our hero ponders his options when suddenly he spots a massive monster in front of him. It's a level 210 hellbear chasing one of the hyenas. As soon as it notices our hero, it charges straight towards him. The young man realizes he is about to fall from the tree and into the bear's mouth. In a split second, he uses the spring water to conceal himself from the bear. With the help of tree magic, our hero manages to escape the bear's grasp and jumps to safety. Our hero understands that before he attacks, he needs to restrain his opponent. He decides to throw a stake at the bear, but realizes it only angers the bear more. Our hero then struggles to find a way to defeat the bear and decides to use fire. However, the bear hits him with its large head, sending our hero flying. After recovering, our hero realizes that he is back in the normal world of school life. His only hope is to seek revenge and make everyone feel the pain he has experienced. Our hero doesn't want to die here and decides to make one final attempt to attack the bear. He uses his superhuman strength to cut off the bear's claws. Our hero wonders how much power he possesses, but he understands that he doesn't need to shout the name of his ability to activate it. He continues to fight the bear even though he may be tired. Our hero is more cautious this time and manages to get a stake from the bear's shoulder, gaining superhuman strength from it. He fries the bear's steak and claws, which give him physical strength. Our hero realizes that he will become even stronger after this. When he was eating the same cat meat he had just defeated, our hero appeared in front of him again. Our hero didn't understand why he kept doing things like that continuously. It was a dangerous situation, but the young man thought he wanted to win more easily and didn't care how high the level of all his skills was. They were only suitable for close combat, which led to this outcome. The hero was a cook, not a warrior. Tsukuru now understood why he was banished to this special forest. It was all because of the simple reason that he was a cook, and they knew he would die here alone. As he was thinking about it, his black magic skill was learned after hearing about this skill. Our hero realized that it came from the last monster. Finally, there was a skill that would help him, and the next moment they gave him a title. The system reported that the false title had occurred, accepting people who didn't even think about how to cover themselves because our hero was completely naked. After that, he fought with the animal that fell into his hands, knelt down, and shouted throughout the forest. Our hero didn't understand why he was given such a title, while his statistics had improved. After checking his card, our hero saw that it had been 30 days, and he had been here for a month. He became stronger, but he didn't even know when he could get out of this forest. At that time, the young man wore a belt because it was the only thing he could salvage from his torn clothes that had often been handled by opponents like a sand warship, where level 170 was the Soul Eater. It was an ancient doll level 160. After that, he acquired the durable earth wall magic skill and summoned the spirit of martial arts, the art of the six senses, and walked in a loincloth. Our hero realized how cold and lonely it was. He thought the young man, who usually had all kinds of animals like snails or soft fur accompanying the main character in novels, was grateful for walking endlessly in this forest. Like a primitive human, he never understood when it would end. The young man was so frustrated because the only hope was to have a soft bed to talk to be naughty, and he wanted a hug. If he had at least some clothes, it would be easier for him to endure. While he screamed, the monster started screaming and swimming past him. Our hero noticed that he had seen this monster several times before. Tsukuru Sumeragi usually hid from it, but since then he had become very excited after carefully observing the monster. The young man used his displacement. And then, the shadow shackles tried to capture the opponent, but the monster tried to escape from our hero's clutches using the magic of the tree. It tried to capture the monster, which looked like a skeleton in a cloak, and our hero believed that it was very frightening. He didn't attack it before, but this time he decided to fight it, using the burning sensation presence every time. It teleported as far as the young man understood, about 150 meters away, watching how his opponent tried to fight him until the young man canceled the burning skill that would be activated. And now, the monster's escape was a no-go. Our hero followed him attentively, and the next time the enemy attacked, he, our hero, using the slashing, was able to overcome his opponent. After that, the young man received his cloak, and now he could say goodbye to the title of the hermit's cloak he wore. The young man made one that was invisible to monsters below the protected level from all kinds of magic. Our hero was happy he got such a cloak. Now he carefully looked at the sword he left behind. The opponent thought he was on the verge again when he approached the sword. It had started moving when he did. The light protected his eyes from this light. Our hero, seeing the object, heard it. He could speak. The sword asked our hero, looking at him, if the young man was also a Tsukuru warrior who had many skills as abilities. At that time, the young man sat by the river to have lunch. The completion of his production skill happened when our hero was eating meat and admiring how cool that sword was. The extraordinary young man could utilize his cooking skills to consolidate the new sword skills he had just realized he possessed. He had never heard of a chef like that young man before, listening to all the praises about him. Our hero thought for the first time in this world that he would speak with the sword, thinking it was truly extraordinary. The heavy side of observing this sword tried to understand the reasons. The young man sighed and then turned around. He asked if he was a warrior because he had a duty to him. The ball explained that if he saw the young man had the strength to use it, his strength would be the same as our hero's. It turned to Tsukuru, who asked if our hero believed in God. According to our hero, that was very silly. After hearing this answer, the sword concluded that the young man did not believe in God. Of course, Tsukuru didn't believe in him. He had been forced to believe in him for only a month and was already bored. The sword did not understand what the young man was talking about and decided to tell him why he thought so. Our hero never believed in saints or God until he got here. He would never do it, believing that God suddenly called him to this world. He had no chance to refuse it, used and discarded like trash. Sometimes the young man thought he would die recently. He realized that he was still alive thanks to his luck. He often had to risk his life to get food that he couldn't find, searching for shoes or clothes to protect himself from sharp rocks in the forest or branches at night. He couldn't sleep, telling all of this to our hero sword. He didn't understand why he had to go through all of this, except that God allowed it. The person who called himself a hero was ignored by this decadent servant of God. This servant enslaved the pride of this person, bringing him to his true self, just like our hero had. He wanted to destroy his face at that moment. Tsukuru was very serious until the sword laughed. Our hero didn't hear his laughter and didn't understand why he was laughing. If the sword would stop him, the young man wanted to fight, but the sword explained that he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do this because the young man seemed interesting to him. The sword decided that they would do their best to help him seek revenge. Our hero offered the sword to take it and imagine which form of the sword suited him. Hearing this, the young man was very surprised, but did what the sword commanded him to do. The name of this sword is the Death Ball, and soon the system showed him what skills and abilities our hero had acquired. The next time he looked the same as before, our hero wondered if the sword knew that there was a village with people nearby. The sword didn't understand what the young man was talking about, and he had bad news for him in the place where Tsukuru now became the center. The forest, like the sword, trusted the sword, believing that the young man owned it, deliberately following this path in sequence to find and kill the monster running the forest, was then the Dragon Empire at level 300 in front of our hero. When the young man saw the dragon, he tried to run away from her, realizing that the level was useless, and her form was very different from the quiet monster he had ever seen. The young man didn't understand how he could defeat this monster at all. The sword believed that this was not a problem because he might be able to use this sword that told him about it. After hearing this, the young man completely forgot that he was holding the sword in his hand because he didn't know how to use the sword to fight. After hearing this, the sword was, of course, surprised. Next, the moment when our hero tried to escape by talking to the sword, the dragon used the Emperor's breath to face him, with our hero falling to the ground motionless. The young man lay there motionless, and the sword tried to call out to Tsukuru, shouting at the young man to wake up, while the dragon was watching from above. The sword tried to call Tsukuru, who was unconscious at that moment. Calling the young man a sword, he asked him to say at least something. At that moment, he understood that without his master, he couldn't help him in any way. Our hero became unconscious, only thinking about how much he hated everything at that moment. The dragon rushed towards his head, ready to devour him. He was ready when the dragon was about to eat him. Suddenly, the young hero fell somewhere using dark magic, and the dragon looked at that place with a question mark. Our hero had recently lied there, and luckily the young man quickly hid behind his shadow when the sword realized it. After that, they had to fight, and our hero listened to the sword, thinking that he needed food as soon as possible to regain his strength. In the next moment, when he did it, he refreshed himself by grabbing his sword. The young man decided that it was necessary to escape as far as possible from the dragon. The sword realized that. But the young man who escaped didn't understand where he went until someone explained that of course he tried to escape from here as far as possible. Besides, the young man didn't believe that he could face this dragon. At that moment, the dragon was still able to find them, even though he used dark magic. The sword certainly didn't know the answer to this question either, but he had never seen anyone who could survive a collision with this monster. After hearing the story, our hero didn't understand the meaning. The sword also mentioned that the dragon was chasing him, so he turned to Minister Tsukuru until he caught him. After hearing this, our hero tried to escape, but the dragon managed to be right beside him, using the iron wall to protect himself. Our hero faced the dragon, who in turn used the imperial breath. The young man understood that it was impossible for him to escape or approach this dragon. Currently, it was chewing meat to heal its body somehow. Tsukuru decided that it was then possible to try using dark magic, knowing that the dragon would follow him, but until he found it by erasing and appearing after it, which would be dismantled by our hero. The hero decided that his ideal plan should be like this. It had worked, but at that moment the dragon attacked him, and the young man managed to climb right on top of the dragon. The next moment he tried to attack it. Then he used his power from the iron wall and dark magic, but the dragon kept attacking our hero, who didn't understand why because he used the removal of presence, but the dragon still searched for him, all because the intention to kill him was too strong, as suggested by the sword. Our hero didn't understand the intention of killing he was talking about. Then the sword said that even though our hero hid his breath, he activated the dismantling and still showed the intended murder automatically. His presence became useless to read. Our hero's card reflected it. Even though the sword said so, he had no other choice. Then he saw a word that made him addicted, a skill that could help our hero produce, and Tsukuru decided that he could use it. Tsukuru only had one chance to use the product, and the intention to kill in our hero's love was used to attack his opponent, believing that this time he could win, and the Imperial Dragon was defeated. After our hero defeated the Imperial Dragon, something complicated appeared in front of him, and the young man thought that maybe it was something like the Wheel of Fortune. The sword noticed that it was clearly meant to help people enter their destruction against this boss. The sword offered to change the wheel in front of Tsukuru. The young man noticed it now. The area around it looked safe, and there were no monsters here either. So he decided that he would try to spin the wheel, hoping that luck would be on our hero's side. The young man took out a black ball, but he had no idea what it meant. The next thing that happened was an explosion, and our hero suddenly felt it. He had received a skill called Equivalent Exchange, which immediately activated. The sword was happy for our hero because he got a unique skill here. Usually meaning that this skill is less common than usual. Our hero was not sure. It seemed like he had one skill and the machine was not lucky at all. The sword understands what our hero wants now. The sword realizes that our hero needs to kill the boss and wait for this machine to appear to him. It's grateful that he doesn't want to do this, seeing his face. But anyway, they have to level up their skills, so it's time for the art of fencing to laugh and tell our hero that they both need to get used to each other and finally take the Tsukuru sword to fight the monster. According to him, everything goes smoothly and easily, and the sword also praises the young man because he's getting better and better at it naturally, as it is their nature as heroes. Our hero notices this, but in the end, he is very grateful to the sword for teaching him while laughing. The sword admits it as a praise to our hero. Meanwhile, the young man gains passive skills of physical attack resistance and magic attack resistance, and the game becomes super after dealing with all of this. Our hero laughs and finally feels bliss sitting in something like a bathroom. The system notices that the young man has new skills and abilities, while our hero does what the sword says. Now he can possibly ask for his help, as our hero's mind and the bathroom where the young man is sitting are made with the help of a key contact and a water gun, and it's called a magical bathtub. The sword knew what Tsukuru wanted to ask it, which was how to get out of this forest. But after thinking for a moment, the sword asked if he really wanted to go out in such ragged and torn clothes, pointing to the robe hanging near our hero. After seeing it, he agreed with the sword, And it was indeed a good idea to make some new clothes using hyena fur, naked sheepskin, and heavenly wool to sleep in. Our hero made an ice sky outfit, wearing a sheepskin shirt, jeans, a hyena fur jacket made from barefoot leather, and a bear coat made from naked skin. Finally, our hero put on all of this and was ready. After seeing how our hero dressed up, the sword thought it was a good idea to use camouflage on him and his equipment. After all that happened, the sword noticed that the young human boy was no longer a normal human. It thought Tsukuru couldn't help but agree, but he was tormented by the question of who he would meet first. The sword thought that it was also very interested in this, realizing that our hero now had the latest equipment like the ice sky suit, standing on top of the mountain. Our hero immediately fell down, and the sword tried to figure out what happened. Likewise, our hero, the sword decided that the young man was the first person he had seen. But it felt strange to fall where he saw from. Our hero believed that he couldn't fall from this mountain because he lived inside it, in extreme conditions in the forest. He couldn't fall in any way lying in the field. Our hero discussed it, and then his reasoning was disturbed by someone's voice. The voice told him to wait until the end without disrupting the crowd of screaming people who insisted they had not come here and should gather around him. Our hero suspected they might be bandits robbing people and asked Tsukuru what they wanted. Hoping they wouldn't cause trouble, our hero activated his passive resistance skills. Some suggested preparing for death, facing the threat of our gang. The hero, hearing this from the sword, asked for a moment to confirm if the people in the carriage were the ones provoking the situation. He had no intention of befriending the people in this world. As he passed the carriage, he noticed they were asking for help. Our hero couldn't comprehend how he was noticed. The princess was in the carriage and the bandit overheard that she was indeed involved with someone, although they didn't know who. They heard a human voice but paid no attention. Determined to steal the carriage, they leaped onto it. Our hero couldn't allow that, and planned to confront them next time. Confusion reigned among the bandits. That's when they saw our hero. The bandits tried to figure out where he came from, while the princess, still in the carriage, was bewildered by the situation. Meanwhile, one of the bandits urged her to quickly open the carriage door. The assistant asked the princess not to pay attention to it at that moment. The girl looked at our hero's face, who was helping and dealing with the criminals by standing on the cart after the fight. The sword realized that what our hero said was nothing at all. She wondered what it would be like because it was the first time the young man killed a man. The sword wondered what emotions he felt experiencing. The only thing our hero said was that he didn't understand the reason. It was very easy. Then he was called to divert his attention from his thoughts. Friends wondered who he was becoming. Our hero didn't answer anything and decided to go his own way. But the people tried to stop him. The young man didn't listen to them. Meanwhile, everyone tried to understand how the princess and her assistant felt after taking care of our hero. They were very interested in who this person was. Finally, he became our hero, achieving his goal. He had arrived in the city. There he was welcomed beautifully. The girl offered him to enjoy all the entertainment. He could find our hero watching the people. And when he saw the city, he finally realized that since then, his life had become normal. People strolled through the bustling city streets. Among the crowd, he overheard snippets of conversation about a mysterious man who had appeared out of nowhere, like a character from a fairy tale. It seemed like the arrival of this man was eagerly anticipated, as one listener expressed their hope for such an encounter. On another day, our hero found himself wandering the city, heading towards the store to buy some food. As he handed over the payment of 850 gold, he couldn't help but notice the lack of variety in his weaponry. Standing near a weapons store that displayed an array of swords, our hero couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority, as if he were the best in the world. However, his attention was drawn to a particular sword that seemed to outshine the rest. Curious about the potential consequences of acquiring it, our hero pondered the concept of equivalent exchange. Continuing his stroll through the city, thoughts of pasta, bread, and noodles filled his mind. Intrigued, he inquired about the availability of rice for his meal. One of the merchants, intrigued by our hero's question, examined him closely before suggesting that rice might be a rare find. However, there was a possibility that the general store might have it. With determination, our hero made his way to the grand building, hoping to find the answers he sought. When he entered, he saw a sweet girl who first greeted us. The hero was surprised and didn't know what to do, but then he reported that he had heard that rice was sold here. When he realized, he asked the girl if this was the issue. Seeing how our hero felt embarrassed with the thought of the sword, that the man might have fallen in love with her at first sight, staring at her face, the young man explained that it was not the issue, it was just because he hadn't spoken to anyone for a long time. The sword realized that if he liked the girl, he could buy her. Our hero didn't understand what he was talking about. The sword suggested paying attention to the necklace around her neck and that it was for slaves. After hearing that the necklace was for slaves, our hero began to think about the girl. At that moment, she was calling him to come to her. She showed that they had different types of rice from all over the world. Even the rice lying next to her came from the local fields. The only thing that interested the young man was that he wanted to know the type, not the location. After carefully examining the rice in front of him, the young man noticed that one of them looked fair like Japanese, and the other looked like a type of egg rice. Because of that, he turned into the girl. He asked for 10 sacks of rice, and the girl thanked him for the purchase. Our hero asked for 600,000 gold from the shop owner. This shop owner immediately appeared in front of the young man, introducing himself as Sadel. He came to greet as a young man who had certainly made a large purchase. The owner wondered if our hero was in town for the first time, and the young man said that was indeed the case. The owner paid close attention because Sukuru arrived in this city just yesterday. Immediately, the man began to ask our hero if he wanted them to send his goods to the hotel or if he had a cart. Our hero asked for a receipt, and at that moment, he told us that it didn't need to be sent anywhere, carrying all these bags of rice to his storage place to be carefully watched over. The owner saw all his rice gone and thought the customer might have a large capacity box. Our hero didn't understand which box he meant. Next, the man decided to offer our hero a spice knife. Our hero said the shop had everything from food to slaves. When our hero heard about the slave, he asked again, and the man said seriously, looking thoughtful, that his client was interested in the slave. Sadly, reporting that there was no hiding it, our hero truly believed the man jumped to that conclusion because he wasn't interested in her. The merchant was intrigued and brought him into the shop. He looked around and realized that most of the slaves were normal people. Since slaves were also individuals with choices protected by the law, our hero watched over everything. The slaves observed what they looked like as servants, but the hero didn't quite understand what they wanted to show him. At that moment, he led him to the right. Behind him, there were many criminal slaves. Usually, no one thinks about criminal slaves when they are sold to society because they don't have their rights. They are usually bought only to fight or work in dangerous situations. As our hero should pay attention to the quality of the slaves, they are feared as thieves, and even murderers are brought here to avoid prison. Currently, the girls who were watching our hero offered to shop with him and offered to buy him. The man continued, saying that all of this was done so that criminals could contribute to society in a way that the general public did not want to do. When he heard the story interrupted by a curious servant who asked them to be quiet, talking to the girls who had spoken with our hero earlier, Sadel asked to pay attention to the girl sitting in the corner. He arrived here today working as a witch at the house of a nobleman where a child was murdered, and at that time, when he was closest to the crime scene, he was accused. It was all fair because it was just because the girl was unlucky. After hearing our story, the hero decided to ask if the merchant thought the girl was involved in it. But the man certainly didn't know. Sadel said that he was close friends with her father, but he died 2 years ago. Sad had known the girl since birth. She always had a good heart, just like he did. After her father's death, she lived in a nobleman's house, and now she was accused of murder. After hearing all this, our hero thought that the voice he heard at that moment was very similar to the sound he had experienced before. Sadel asked if he could hear it, requesting and buying a can, but our hero explained that he couldn't do it. The sword couldn't do it. He understood why our hero couldn't do it. Maybe it was because he wasn't used to it. But everything was fine for us. The hero just didn't want to involve anyone else in his revenge plan. The merchant will have to ask someone else to do it. The man explained that it was impossible. The girl would definitely be executed if she didn't take her away immediately. Then a stranger broke the door and told Seidel that he wanted to buy a konu. Seeing this person, the young man's sword seemed very rough. Meanwhile, Seidel went to talk to him, and the sword realized that the man was wearing wizard clothes. The sword also believed that it would be beneficial for the young man to have a slave to help him, especially since he was already working as a magician. The person who broke the door explained that there was no need to talk here. Afterwards, hearing how the document shifted to Seidel, he asked how he was doing and apologized to the young man, but he had to see the price himself. Our hero watched their conversation, realizing that the man who had just entered the door seemed to be in a bad mood, and noticed that our hero decided to ask who he was. The man was very proud, so he trusted Seidel to deal with this young man. He chased him because he considered himself more important than our hero. Our hero couldn't stand such a conversation and explained that he and Seidel had already talked. The man entered while shouting and interrupting them, turning to Seidel. Our hero reported that he would buy Kana for 100 million gold. After hearing this, the merchant was surprised. The man next to him didn't understand what our hero was saying because he would definitely buy this slave. Tsukuru didn't understand if it was true. Just as the young man said, he intervened in their conversation, asking the man to stop because this client agreed to buy Konu even before he entered and grabbed our hero's chest. Dockham was not pleased, but the man in front of him didn't care who Dockham was and how he dared to be so arrogant towards him. That's what he didn't understand. Our hero looked at his opponent threateningly. At that moment, Seidel asked Oakham not to make a scene here. After calming down, the man reported that he would not forget this incident. Our hero watched the young man leave the place. The sword asked if the young man had bought a girl, if he was sure about it because he thought our hero didn't want to get involved with anyone. That was true, but not like anyone he had met. So he decided to destroy everyone who dared to displease him. After taking a hit, our hero put on his cloak and told Seidel that he was in debt. Seidel's will would surely repay all his kindness. The things Tsukuru did today pleased our hero. The man was happy. The bad things turned out to be true about his abilities. He couldn't use that judgment on Tsukura. He only saw the name of our hero and his deadly title, the Swordmaster. But Seidel was sure that this man would be able to protect Kana. They could rest peacefully, turning to their friend. Seidel thought about his daughter's bright future, very bright and exciting, watching Kana and our hero left the merchant shop. Despite he doing him a favor, that Seidel guy still charged him the full price. Now our hero completely broke when he bought a Kana. He decided to give him some photos of Kana and her father as a completely free gift, considering this would somehow balance out our hero's cost. Of course, he didn't need it all, so he sat and looked out the window. The young man reasoned that he intended to leave this town as soon as possible, once he had prepared everything necessary. But it seems he had to change his plans because he needed money. But most importantly, he had to give the girl a break until she felt well enough to start talking. At that moment, he noticed Kana sleeping next to him. Tsukuru decided to divert his attention and went to cook, which he liked the most. Most of the therapeutic food was already prepared. The next moment, the scammer was watching him, sitting near the hero's seat at the table, reporting that there was a lot of food so the girl could eat as much as she liked. However, she had heard that she was poorly fed like a slave. Our hero noticed that she didn't exactly know what people in this world ate, but he decided that she must like it. The girl crawled to the table very carefully and took the food from the table that was still on the floor. She started eating. The young man watched how she held the plate above the floor, not understanding what she was doing when she grabbed it from the scammer's hand. Sadly, the girl reported that the slave had to keep eating off the floor, as the sword told our hero. The criminal fish ate and slept on it. The girl still thinks like a slave, understanding that she doesn't care, she has to sit in a chair and at a table. She also can't eat food with her bare hands. The girl silently agrees and sits at the table, starting to eat like a normal person. The hero notices that her demeanor is quite graceful. Her aura is definitely different from the other slaves kept in the dungeon. Watching the girl eat, the young man wonders if the food is delicious, confident in his culinary skills, but the girl continues to chew silently. The hero doesn't understand what kind of reaction is expected, as the nutritional therapy should heal all physical wounds instantly, but it also affects the mind. Our hero observes as the girl continues to chew silently, tears flowing from her eyes. Seeing this, our hero doesn't understand why she's crying. Dropping the knife from her hand, the girl covers her face with her hands and starts calling out for Dolce-sama and crying. Our hero understands that her words prove that her mind has been healed, and the sword realizes that the hero's food remedy has worked, so he can calm her down. He helps her up to bed and starts calling out for Dolce-sama to try to find out why this happened. Our hero thinks that she looks very distressed. But what did they do to this girl? After looking at the photo, our hero wonders how she was summoned to this world. Our hero believes that all nobles are terrible people, considering all the situations that have happened to him with his friends and the unfortunate people under the sword's pressure. In this moment, he finds himself distracted from his own thoughts as he notices the presence of 5 individuals. Among them are a few small children who couldn't even conceal their presence properly. It seemed impossible for them to possess the confidence of seasoned swordsmen, which our heroes were at that time. Tsukuru felt a strange desire for these 5 people to enter the house where he and Kana were together. However, our heroes managed to catch up with them and dealt with some of them. Tsukuru even appeared behind one of the villains, knocking the knife out of his hand and subduing him. As our hero suggested chasing after him, Tsukuru tried to figure out who had sent these individuals. Our hero displayed his strength and forced the young man to speak, questioning their purpose and who had instructed him to be here. The young man, who had already disposed of his trash, returned with the intention of getting rid of it once again. However, they threatened to sever his limbs and seek revenge on the person who had pursued our hero. Tsukuru, who was still trying to make sense of the young man's nonsensical ramblings, listened attentively as the stranger explained that he had no idea who was standing before him. They were simply following orders to kill the red-haired slave girl who had been walking with him. After hearing this, our hero focused intently on the young man, urging him to continue his story. The young man explained that they knew nothing about him or the girl, but they had been offered a substantial amount of money. But if he knew that he was fighting someone like Tsukuru, he explained that he never took on the job of being our hero. Now we understand how everything works, and disable the man who thought the sword was needed to ask the young man if he wanted to find out who was behind all this. Our hero has already guessed who the mastermind behind all this is and what happened here. They have to leave this city soon, and the faster the better. It's annoying because they are in a very unpleasant situation. The sun shines the next morning. Kana wakes up and looks out the window of the room in front of her. It's dawn. Our hero's revenge will do it all. The equivalent exchange applied long-distance skills replaced by cleaning after it. Our hero's clothes shine, everything is clean, and now it belongs to him. He have arrived in the city, he must try to focus on keeping it clean. The young man who saw his robe decided to give it to Kana. A while later, according to him, it belongs to our hero. He notices that the girl didn't even bathe at that time. He carefully observes how Kana is sleeping. It seems like she had a bad dream. After that, the young man decides that he has to cook. He wants to eat something, but he doesn't have everything he needs. Meanwhile, he falls into fragments of his past. He hears how they try to console him by saying that it's sad when a loved one dies. His father was a great magician, and they ask the girl not to despair and offer to consider them as her family. She was grateful when a little child held my hand. Mr. Dolce was talking to whom he was very happy about being able to work for good people like them. Until this girl led him as usual, sweeping the plantation roads. She noticed a sprout growing near the castle wall, but she had to eliminate it because she was supposed to do so. Knowing that, Kana decided to take it and put it in his pot. So, jokingly greeting the flower, he asked it to wait for him here when the girl decided to go inside. One of the house servants called her, saying that it was urgent. She screamed that the Count's son had been attacked. Kana ran to where the man was pointing, and the next moment he saw Mr. Dolce lying on the ground in front of him, bleeding. The girl reached for Mr. Dolce and asked him not to die. The only thing she was thinking about was where the attacker was and why Mr. Dolce was here all alone. She felt the young man's silence and breath. Hana decided that she would heal him now using her healing magic, but it was useless. The young man's wound was too deep. She couldn't even stop the bleeding. When she saw that the young man didn't respond, the girl started crying. She begged him not to die and asked him to stop the bleeding. At that moment, a young man came here looking at this. He thought it wasn't a good idea to find out what happened here. When the girl cradled Mr. Dolce in her arms, crying and screaming, the next moment Kana was arrested for the murder of Mr. Dolce. Besides, they know that he killed her for the money. He told everyone that he was cleaning up, but there is no information about it, and the officer who called him reported directly to Mr. Dolce's body, saying that he saw this woman stabbing Mr. Dolce with a knife. After hearing that, he was falsely accused. Kana tried to prove that it wasn't him. They also said it in Mr. DC's room. A man found a letter from her, luring him to the scene. Kana tried to explain that he had never done this before. They said that Mr. Dolce was really relaxed near him, and he wasn't ready for this, tears streaming down his face. Kana tried to prove that it wasn't him, but everything failed. Then he arrived at the scene from where our hero took him from his address. He was told to eat when the food was brought. The girl looked at the waiter with empty eyes and scared them. They tried to find out what was wrong with her, and especially what was wrong with her eyes. Besides, she should be happy. They believed that they weren't beheaded for the murder. Count saw the food given to her and thought it was vomit. It can hardly be called food. Of course, it was very difficult for her to do it. Eat her cellmate's food. Her cellmate saw that the girl didn't eat it. She took her food and said that if she didn't want to eat it, she would eat it. She also noticed that the girl would die if she didn't eat it. Besides, they would soon sell her, and it was only a matter of time before they worked in their mine. Her cellmate also told Kana that she was her mistress and would treat her. Kana immediately embraced her knees sadly to figure out why they were doing this to her and what mistake she made. The girl knew that if Mr. Dolce was still alive, this wouldn't have happened. She wondered what she needed to do. Someone said they had given this girl to their store, and next thing Kana heard was that someone wanted to buy Kana. The girl saw someone reaching out their hand to her, trying to figure out who that person was. Did she think it was her new master? The young man who cooked food and told her to sit at the table. This was her first memory when our hero invited her to the table. The girl looked at her food and tried to figure out when was the last time she ate normal food. She wasn't hungry, but she couldn't resist. The moment she tasted her food, she was very surprised at how delicious it was. That's what our hero asked for. How did it feel? Because he was confident in his culinary abilities, as he said at that time. In front of Kana's face, our hero's body master Dolce smiled and said everything would be fine now. The young man asked her not to cry, but tears flowed from their own eyes, and she remembered Mr. Dolce. Meanwhile, when Kana was sleeping, the hero saw her money bag and realized that the amount was not much. They left as if their parents had left them pocket money, so she realized that she wouldn't be able to cover living expenses. When he stopped eating, he heard that Kana had woken up and asked if she was hungry. Next, as the girl sat at the table and ate all the food she had, our hero understood that she had cooked 6 pots of rice and noticed how someone ate without even wondering if the girl was even human. Tsukuru thought about helping her recover. Her face looked pale and the girl seemed excited. Then our hero asked if the food was delicious, and Kana smiled like never before. Seeing the surprise in his smile, our hero decided that he must have fallen in love with her without even realizing it. The sword reminded him that there used to be a cat girl, and now there was Kana. Our hero tried to reason with himself that this couldn't be happening. The next moment, he saw Kana fall from the table, and our hero thought something bad had happened to her. She might have eaten too much or had an allergic reaction to something she didn't know. Maybe he should have told her to stop eating at that moment. The sword asked if Kana was okay because the girl had just fallen asleep. Our hero understood what it meant and realized his mistake. He noticed Kana, who had been sleeping earlier, wake up to have breakfast with the same wild appetite that our hero had created. They toasted to egg sandwiches, pizza toast, and grapefruit yogurt. Our hero understood what she liked and praised her, saying that she was a great cook. Of course, our hero wouldn't accept the praise, but it turned out to be so good, and he was happy that the girl enjoyed it even more, especially Kana. If nothing else happened, except for the next moment when he saw himself, he realized that he was dirty. The girl felt very sorry to our hero because she needed to wash her clothes as soon as possible, as well as her hair. So Kana went to the well. Our hero asked not to use it, but she's fine because people find her strange. It seems like everything is sorted out for the girl because she is our hero's slave. Our hero still insists that it would be better if the girl didn't do this and applies a purification spell on her. The next moment her dress is cleaned again. She is surprised to see that all the stains have disappeared and even her hair is clean. Our hero offers her the gift he has prepared for her. The young man reports that he slept a bit strangely, so he did it for her. The girl is a little embarrassed by her gift and apologizes to our hero by accepting it when she wears it. According to her, the bra he gave her is truly amazing. She has never seen anything like it before. It is embroidered with roses and it looks very beautiful. It is a complete set of women's sleepwear, with a specially made top and bottom, designed specifically for Kana. The underwear fits her perfectly, and it is very easy for her to move in it, which she really likes. Our hero turns around and suggests that she dress faster. In a short time, she answers his question, thinking that it is from Japan. The girl herself realizes that she doesn't know what Japan is, and when she was imprisoned before, she heard them calling heroes from another world to defeat the Demon King. But there was a hero that no country wanted, and when she just thought about it, our hero seemed to read her mind. By the way, he reports that he forgot to introduce himself because he is Tsukuru Sumeragi. Now the girl realizes that the person she was thinking of is indeed our hero, standing right in front of her as if she had been abandoned by everyone. Maybe that's why he's so nice to her. Then Khan wants to ask the master to take care of the girl. She offers to call her Kana, introduces herself to our hero, and he's happy to do so. Following his orders, our hero then asks her to show him around the city, and Kana agrees. So they go sightseeing together. Kana shows the bakery, and every morning there's a huge line at the biggest bookstore in town. They have everything from children's picture books to grimoires. Their cafe serves delicious sandwiches. Then there's a park, perfect for picnics. The bakery also has delicious grilled meat and fish. She also recommends the ice cream shop nearby. If you want to eat barbecue, they can do it right in front. Our hero is kind, and after seeing everything Kana showed, she adds that the girl only showed her the restaurant. Kana apologizes to her and shows her the best weapon shop in town. It's small, but well-stocked. Kana also adds that she's an old friend of her father's. At that moment, our hero notices how the girl looks a little sad. He asks me to come in and take a look, and he will do it. Waiting outside, our hero reports that everything is fine, and the girl asks if he's sure because there are so many weapons there much better than her sword. Besides, our hero just covers it up using his disguise skill. Knowing that she's poor, while she shows all this, what business does she think she'll open? Kana becomes interested, and our hero reports that she's a cook. And it seemed that the girl thought it didn't make sense, so she asked if she knew how many restaurants were in the area. It was necessary to change the people who had been following them since they entered, and Kor at that time believed that he couldn't open a shop because he was a beginner without any connections. The man thought that the people chasing them from the entrance were very different from anyone he had seen before. There was no hospitality in them. Tsukuru thought they should leave their swords here. After listening, he realized that it was the best decision, because our hero asked Kana how to reach the shop from here, and the girl offered to follow her. She knew her shop. Well, she wondered if she knew Sadel because she wondered if they had ever met before. She also explained that she didn't remember anything from the beginning of her imprisonment until this morning. Our hero was very surprised by that. The girl didn't even remember her shop. He thought it was a good place to discuss the opening of the shop. At that time, it was seen by a girl who had met our hero before. She immediately called their owner and finally found him, and the owner hugged Kana happily. She was back to normal. The girl was inside her own arms, thinking she was squeezing her too hard. Kana couldn't breathe anymore. The owner wanted to ask how he could thank our hero. Our hero saw Sadal, and the young man asked him not to do this because he was here to ask for help. Of course, the owner said he would do his best. Sadal said he was very sorry, but rice products were not popular here, after hearing our hero's advice. Besides, there are way too many cafes in the area, and it's foolish to open another one. We also need confirmation from the government and trade unions, and they have been very strict lately. Our hero says that Kana has already done it, informing her about this, but before the decisive word, Sadal must taste the food as requested by our hero. Sadal looks at the food in front of her and decides to try it. But before that, using her analysis, she sees that it's not just ordinary rice in front of her. It's a dish that enhances stamina for 2 hours, magic that boosts the power for 2 hours, intelligence that increases Ares' intelligence by 2 points, agility that enhances agility by 2 points, and dexterity that improves dexterity by 2 points. After appreciating all these incredible jumps, Sadal rises from her seat, thinking that it's truly amazing. Tsukuru reports that he couldn't find food anywhere that could increase his stats by 100 in a day. Seeing this, Sadal suggests that our hero should use his shop for this. If he succeeds, they can start selling immediately. Sadal thinks it will be very popular among soldiers and tourists, and they can discuss the terms of delivery with Kana, who is standing and watching their conversation without understanding anything because the girl cannot see her standing next to our hero. When some people appear here and ask if our hero really thinks onigiri will be sold, even if Sadal says so, there's no need to worry when meeting Tsukuru Sumeragi. The soldier was watching him. Our hero saw these people. The people he recently bumped into when he saved the princess on the carriage. One of the young men introduced himself as a scoundrel. He was a follower of Prince Abus. The other was Goliath, and he was also a follower. They offered our hero to go with them. The young man asked if he needed to take his slave with him. They didn't know yet. They thought it would have a bad impact. Our hero asked if Kana wanted to go with him because it was his choice, and Kana agreed. They arrived at the place where the Lord was waiting for them. He was waiting for them in his office. At that time, Kana was following our hero. He was seen by people he knew, trying to find out how he dared to come here after killing Dolce. After hearing this, our hero took his hand, and Kana was touched that his master was so caring towards him. Our hero entered the office and a girl appeared in front of him, also a man who greeted him and apologized for calling our hero suddenly. The man introduced himself as Dengaro, and his daughter was next to him. The girl introduced herself as Altelias. When Kana caught sight of Miss Altelias, he stared at her in astonishment. The girl greeted him and then turned to the princess's lord. She expressed her gratitude for his saving her life when she was attacked by bandits. Everything seemed too good to be true, and our hero couldn't help but wonder if it was all real. The girl simply wanted to say thank you, so she sent her scoundrel father to find him as well. Our hero was taken aback when he saw the 10 million in front of him. It was a shock, because it was 20 times the price of Kana. He couldn't fathom why they were giving him something so valuable. They explained that it was because they needed his help, as he had killed their son. In that moment, our hero saw the man confirming that the story was true. But he couldn't bring himself to believe it. He tried to understand the reason behind it all. Everyone blamed him, and they explained that there was no evidence of his innocence. It was all a setup, which was why Dengaro used his influence to change the death penalty to slavery. After hearing this, our hero trusted him. His friend also added that everyone believed in his innocence, including the princess and the officers who brought him here. Kana was so shocked that he couldn't hold back his tears, and our hero was surprised when the man asked something of him. He wondered what kind of offer Dengaro had in mind. The man revealed that he wanted to find the real killer. When he heard Mr. Sumeragi mention that he had gone to the Adventurers Guild yesterday to prepare for the sale of onigiri, everything fell into place. They were all set. It would cost 10,000 gold to start, and they would have a contract for 100 pieces per day for a full month. However, he was confident that they could do even more. The only challenge would be increasing the amount of food, but they might even be able to sell it for 20,000 gold. Our hero looked at him fully, ignoring him at that moment, and it seemed that it was not the case described by our hero that he had run out of money and offered a short sword that he gave to Seidel. This sword was given to him when he realized that the man Count mentioned earlier did not beg and plead to find the one who truly killed his son. Our hero understood that the man certainly wanted him to find his son's killer. The young man would be rewarded, as Count told him as payment, he would receive 50 million gold coins, and when he found the culprit, he would give him another 10 million gold coins. Our hero was interested in what would happen to Kana when the real killer was found, and of course Kana would be freed from all charges. Then he could loosen his collar because it was not suitable for him at all. The princess asked about it immediately after this happened. She also asked Kana to work here again. She wanted to have tea together again. The princess said that with Kana's departure, she felt very lonely at the tea party. Our hero reported that he accepted their request, but he was not like that. The Dengaro expert asked him not to worry, having heard from Rotten and Goliath about his behavior in the city. He really believed that they would be able to complete this task. Our hero thought about what a Dengaro sucker was, but it seemed he couldn't say anything. The young man said that he had counted the man Count mentioned since yesterday. Seidel hoped everything would be fine from now on. At that moment, the girls reported that the man who killed Mr. Dolce might still be nearby. But if something happened to Kana, Seidel was afraid Tsukuru would explain that there was certainly a small risk. But if they left the city, Kana would still be in danger as believed by our hero. Even though they were forced to leave this city where they couldn't rely on anyone there, undoubtedly they are the ones who will try to silence his gratitude. He doesn't want to live in constant fear, and in a place where there are no allies, our hero. He thinks it's comfortable and free to visit and leave the prince's palace. He truly hopes that if that's what he wants, then he has no complaints. Therefore, our hero asks to save Kana at any cost. The sword reports that even when Tsukuru seems very hesitant to save the person referring to us, the hero notices the sword that he believes is not the issue. It's just that there are still people who believe Kana. He didn't kill anyone, so Tsukuru didn't want him to become a target for revenge. He will resolve this incident and then leave him in this city. When our hero arrived at the plantation, he was welcomed as Mr. Sumeragi, and there was Hana in front of him. The princess ordered him to show the mansion. Our hero reports that he just wants to talk to him. Rotten or Rotten Goliath, as instructed, is currently in the mansion, but now he is talking to his wife, so they ask him to wait. Our hero is surprised that this man is already married. Kana notices that this is his case. His wife Alicia is very beautiful, and they, Cloud, are very similar to them. The smart girl also notices that they are very suitable for each other. Our hero listens to Kana, thinking to himself, of course, that's not a problem for him. Moving along the corridor, he encounters the same man with whom they used to quarrel because of Kana when the young man sees our hero. He started calling out names, saying that he was the person he met sadly at the store. But why is Tsukuru here? This house is where the abuse happened. There is no place for commoners like him here. When our hero saw him, he thought this place was even less suitable for it. Those who shouted above their voices signaled a man who immediately wanted to hit him. Everyone tried to stop him, but the next moment the young man started screaming in pain, looking at his bleeding hand. He did not understand what our hero had done. The same person explained what he had done. There was nothing, just that it belonged to our hero. His level is over 300 with impossible stamina for anyone to hurt him. The young man in front of him named Dokkum is only level 30, so he cannot fight our hero in any way. After seeing the fight, people had to take our hero at the doctor's orders. Besides, Tsukuru, as he believed, had hurt him. They had to see who he really was. Of course, the guards had done it. They wanted our hero to go with them because he was a true man and he hurt him. Our hero was about to draw his sword, but then he was assisted by him. He asked everyone to stop them. They were immediately asked not to do anything. Commander Rotan did not understand what was going on. He thought the same while pointing his sword at his beloved guests. They, stinking, explained that they wouldn't even think he would turn a blind eye to it. When the doctor saw the rotten bus, he didn't understand why this person clenched his fists, because his bones were even broken when they met. He had a reason to attack and tried to block his punch with his rotten hand. Because of that, he had to see what happened, so he turned to the rotten lady trying to understand if she really wanted to let our hero go. After hearing what the doctor said, he tried to stop Mr. Srog, who was hitting with his rotten fist, clarifying this matter. Then the lady made sure no matter how rotten he was, she didn't believe that he really experienced it, blocking his attack with his fist instead. If the young man really wanted to hit him, then his arm would be torn apart because that person believed that he didn't understand, thinking it was a silly, rotten thing. He explained that he had seen the young man fighting twice with his own eyes when the princess was attacking our hero, killing all the bandits directly, and when some suspicious people were secretly targeting Kana. Tsukuru, he destroyed them all. It was a technique that even the commander couldn't control, saying all this rotten, not realizing that maybe the young man didn't realize it. But everyone who challenged Mr. Sumeragi ended up worse than Dokkum, and the commander believed that he should apologize to the young man properly. But Dokkum didn't think it was necessary. She asked the rotten one to shut up. This person has a maximum level of 20, so the young man should not talk nonsense that can be done. What Dokkum can do is just get angry at our hero, Rotten, who tries to control himself, asking to take Dokkum to the hospital that the young man did not visit. He understands how they cannot listen to him and take him with them while he is being taken to the hospital. He screams and kicks as they order him to let go. Our hero notices the presence of the young man being taken away, thinking it's quite difficult. He is embarrassed to serve shameless people like that man. At that moment, Kana falls to his knees right in front of them. Our hero thinks something must have happened to the girl. Kana apologizes profusely to everyone who said that to him. His knees suddenly go weak, and then she interrupts their argument, suggesting that she rest. Our hero thinks it's a good idea, so he asks him to take him to his room while kneeling and apologizing to Mr. Sumeragi, knowing what just happened. Kana, on the other hand, when she sees him kneeling in front of her, believes he shouldn't do that, apologizing to a slave like her. The girl is very uncomfortable. She also believes that this time he will restore his honor. Our heroes pondered how audacious they had been to carefully watch the corrupt commander, believing that our heroes had arrived on time. Besides, he wanted to meet him and wanted the young man to accompany him while talking about the incident. Our heroes were certainly ready to help in any way they could. They should speak privately while Kana and Hana went to the room and Kana could rest by sitting. Our heroes began their investigation while Hana moved along the corridor and realized something. Our heroes continued their discussion after seeing what was handed to them, a paper that our heroes believed to be true, maybe mocking them. It seemed like there was no protocol at all, especially since his son was killed and people had just reported the dumping site and blamed Tsukuru. Our heroes were very curious about who the investigator mentioned in the writing was and why his son was alone outside. Our heroes understood that even a schoolboy like him could understand that this report was useless. The level of culture in this world is very high or low, or maybe our hero's level is too high. Then he thought about the sword and added that it was clear that someone had planned this. Of course, it belongs to our heroes. He agreed with him, but he was sure that someone influential was involved here. Hundreds of questions swirled in the mind of our heroes, who stood out or who benefited from the murder of Count's son. Because he didn't think it was worth limiting himself to the family's abuse, someone might target his status or material possessions. But why did they choose him out of all the servants? He couldn't understand it. After all, according to rumors, he was just an apprentice wizard. Was it an accident or not? The young man tried to understand. Our hero was very frustrated not understanding why he couldn't use detailed analysis to find out who his killer was, who wielded the sword. It was said that it would be too easy for our hero to do that. The young man tried to find out if he had the ability, if he could use it. Then he went into the corridor. He noticed Hana standing not far from them, and our hero was trying to find out what happened to Hana. She explained that the princess had ordered her to bring tea and coffee for Lady Kana, but she had no appetite at all. Our hero entered the room and decided to see Kana, who was sitting on the floor. In the next moment, when the young man wanted to touch her, Kana screamed. Seeing this, our hero realized that the girl was scared. At that moment, she remembered the words of how she was captured for the murder of Dolce. The only thing she could do afterwards was to apologize to our hero. The young man asked her not to worry because he would tell her everything. It was a horrifying story. The girl sadly apologized to our hero because if she had been stronger, Mr. Dolce would never have done it. He died when she ran towards him, but someone skilled in magic like Dockham or others had replaced him. One of them would be able to do it, except her. Of course, the girl knew that Dockham would be angry because she was weak. Our hero remembered how he was also weak, and everyone left him because he couldn't fight anyone. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. So now our hero perfectly understood the feelings Khan had experienced. He reached out to her and asked if Kana wanted to become strong. The girl screamed with tears streaming down her face that she wanted this more than anything in the world. Then our hero offered her to eat what was inside. In front of her was a table filled with various meat dishes. As Kana started eating, she managed to learn the magic abilities of wind magic, and the girl didn't understand what it was. Did our hero give her so much magical food? But maybe she only had 2 abilities. He can't keep learning his abilities like this continuously as our hero's guest. He sees his statistics. Khan is level 3 wizard. He has abilities like fire, wind, magic, forest magic, and his statistics are stamina G, magic D, strength G, intelligence C, agility E, mobility D. Luckily, our hero has decided that the next step is to complete the Tana level. He apologizes to her but asks her to focus on the investigation rather than her training. Our hero explains that he doesn't plan to postpone all of this and asks not to tell anyone who he will inform. Now our hero makes a ghost call and a level 15 fortune teller appears in front of him. The hero feels that it requires quite a lot of energy from him at that time. Smasher speaks to his master and asks for a name so that he can follow his orders, and our hero gives him the name Baze. The skeleton Baze thinks that it is an extraordinary magical power, and it's fair to overwhelm him. Our hero understands that he has absorbed more energy and turned into the desired Baze. He asks him to do something to take him away from the face. The skeleton tells him that the young man doesn't even need to do it. Just say it because he already knows what's in his master's mind. Baze goes to search, leaving our hero, who has never felt so tired. After the framework left them, and the sword tried to pull our hero because he had just lost consciousness from what our hero saw, he tried to catch the girl and asked her to get ready. He thought it was all a dream, but our hero explained that it was indeed a dream. Just then, there was a knock on the door. The young man went to the door and saw the princess in front of him. She was worried about how Lord Sumeragi was searching for the girl. The room reported what it felt. Something dangerous in their room, except for our room. The hero turned around and tried to convince her that everything was fine. He soon decided to change the subject and asked about the princess's condition, thinking about the fact that the girl who was in the carriage at that time was very sensitive to hearing. The girl said that she didn't like being called a princess and asked me to call her. Then our hero asked what brought her here today. Her maid told them about Kana's condition, and the girl wanted to invite both of them to a tea party in the garden. She asked what Kana would say. It was certainly difficult for Kana because he had just eaten the food our hero had prepared for him, but he could only agree. They went to the garden and admired its beauty. The princess was happy with it and praised the garden for being arranged by magic, so it always looked like spring here. After escorting them to the table, the girl told them that she had never had tea with anyone here for a long time, so she asked them to sit, especially Kana, because his new status was not very comfortable for Kana, as he was still a slave. Of course, the princess was sad and understood this. Lately, she often drank tea here with Dolce and Kana. Dolce always played soccer and once broke a tree branch, for which he received a scolding from the household manager. Kana remembers it as a pleasant memory. Right now, they all fell silent, thinking sadly about the situation. But our hero didn't touch his tea, and it seems that the princess doesn't like it either. The next time she started drinking it, the young man noticed that the aroma was clean and it tasted really delicious. If there was no poison in this tea, it wouldn't harm her. But as far as our hero knows, an ordinary person would die instantly. At the moment, he is analyzing the table in front of him. Only the tea that went into his cup was poisoned, and there is an alkaloid poison in it. The table is not poisoned, and our hero is trying to figure out who did it. The young man starts speculating whether it was Princess who invited them here, or if she ordered her servants to do all this, or if the servant acted on his own. Our hero has many questions in his mind. The princess interrupts his thoughts and asks how their investigation is progressing. Our hero explains that he only had time to talk to the rotten one and look at his report, but there is no use in this report. The princess says that she thinks exactly the same as us. Besides, this report doesn't include any information about the 4 people who came here yesterday. Her rotten father and Goliath are not here. On that day, however, they had not been interviewed before the murder occurred. Dolce heard him talking to someone and he was sure about it. The man spoke softly, so he was certain that it was a man. He also heard the sound of clinking armor, and soon Dolce was killed. Our hero explained that no one had informed him about it. The princess told the knights to report it, but they refused to write it down. They said it was impossible for him to hear it from behind the dark door. They claimed he misheard the sound. At that moment, he started crying. Our hero, who was watching this, tried to figure out what to do now. He realized that the princess had good hearing, but she could also lie because the poison didn't work. If it wasn't she who cooked the poison, then maybe it was the maid. At that moment, our hero thought about it, looked into her eyes, and the servant turned away sadly when the skeleton appeared in front of them. Our hero heard his master's call, so he turned to Baze and asked her to check on the maid, she who was standing next to them. At that moment, Kana remembered how they used to play ball with Dolce and the girl's daughter, then asked not to disturb her. Unfortunately, things like that happened so that he would play with her, and soon he happily threw the ball, and Mrs. Altelius thought that Kana looked more like her sister than him. The next moment, when the young man tried to catch the girl's ball, it landed right on a branch, which of course scared his brother, and Kana worried that Mr. Dolce might think he was hurt. He reached out to the young man and helped him stand up so that it would be easier for him to get up and immediately reassure everyone that he was indeed fine. But no one understood where this branch came from. The next time the princess saw Hannah, the girl explained that she had made tea for Mrs. Kana, but she said she wasn't hungry at the time. The princess asked her to make tea for 3 people and bring it to the yard, and also choose the best tea that the canon drinks. Of course, Hannah would go talk to her at that time. The girl greeted our hero, who came to meet her, and went to the princess to discuss the whole situation, and it was time to go in chronological order. They left the city in a bad state with Goliath and his subordinates, while at that time, Kana was outside cleaning the walls of the palace after someone told him what had happened. He hurried there before the incident that he heard Dolce talking to a man wearing armor. When he arrived, the killer had already left. He came too late to save her, and Dockham found her at the crime scene. Then they sloppily wrote a report, accusing the household manager of trying to poison her and the people who tried to attack her. Kana now belongs to our hero, watching her scream that she hates him. She spoke to our hero an hour earlier. Our hero headed to the city and greeted him, apologizing to him. But he felt very uncomfortable in the outfit he put on the girl, who wore a wizard dress that regulated body temperature, increased magical power, and enhanced magic resistance. High-quality equipment. The girl also had a wise staff that could absorb magic fire significantly. She became wise and had an anti-nuclear cloak with resistance to poison, traceless resistance to physical damage, and high-quality equipment. Our hero thought it was Kana himself who said he was ready to do anything just to become stronger. He made this outfit just for her. The girl, of course, knew this, but she was very confused. Then she just did it to please our hero while saying it, allowing Baze to investigate. They would focus on leveling her up, and our hero was heading to the Balf Forest when he heard about it. The girl couldn't believe her eyes because she thought the bull forest was so dangerous, and they couldn't just go there like that. At that moment, our hero saw someone watching them and reached for it. The hero ran. He arrived in the forest, taking shelter under a tree. As she had to fight the monster watching from above, the young man saw Kay trying to escape from the monster. It was clear that he wouldn't be able to defeat them if he just kept avoiding them, unless the girl helped. Even if he said he understood, he knew he couldn't fight the monster in any way at that moment. He thought he couldn't win anymore unless our hero came to save him by cutting down the giant monster right in front of him. The young man turned to Kana, hoping he really wanted to become stronger. But Kana, crying, said it was impossible. He couldn't even fight a field mouse, and now suddenly he was fighting a monster with a level over 200. But it turned out to be unrealistic. Our hero then decided that was it. He turned away from Kana and walked away. The girl understood that the man would leave. She understood that this was her chance and memory of Dolce's death. She began to cast spells using fire, immediately increasing her level in the next moment. Kana was happy because she did it and her level kept rising. She didn't stop. She couldn't believe she had defeated someone as strong as that monster. The girl understood that our hero did it intentionally to distance himself from her and pretended that he no longer wanted to work with her. Of course, the young man did it on purpose. However, they were still far from the finish line. After hearing this, Kana was terrified, trying to imagine what else she had to go through. Tsukuru reported that if the girl got hurt, he would give her the food to restore her health. At that moment, the monster behind him came back to life, and when she saw it, she screamed at the master that she had just hated him. After this fight, she was tired and fainted. The hero brought Kana back to the city because she had been running almost all day and fainted. And when it was time to return to the palace, he would give her some restorative market food as well. He should return, but before that, our hero must hide Kana and Kana's status. Instead of being a level 158 wizard, he became a level 25 wizard. Also, half of his magic was hidden in his statistics as well. As he walked down the street, Goliath noticed them trying to figure out what happened to Na because the young man was carrying her in his arms. Our heroes explained that he had only trained her in the nearest underground prison. She fell asleep, and her level increased significantly, with Goliath's tears in his eyes thinking about it. Since that incident, she had been mourning her own weaknesses. Goliath was happy she trained hard, and then wondered what she was doing to the young human. Hearing that a bear was roaming the streets, and he had been patrolling since yesterday, and caught our hero, Goliath was sure he was hungry, so he wanted to treat him at his favorite place. Our hero asked him not to bother because he wasn't hungry, but the man explained that many people from the slums were wandering around today. They must have already targeted him, the wanderers, that's how it should be. The young man was careful. Our hero observed this person closely, and then woke up the girl, hearing that it was time for dinner. They went to the restaurant and decided to eat and drink. Our hero watched them closely. The man who glanced at Sumeragi, thinking that maybe our hero didn't want to eat it, also explained that he didn't think the patrol officer should drink. When Goliath heard this, he didn't understand it, thinking about what kind of man was in front of him. He called himself a knight who couldn't hold a sword after drinking, and a true knight could handle any amount of alcohol, as he thought. Then he started crying and apologized because they weren't there, and Lord Dolce died, and everyone blamed Goliath, who shouldn't have done it, had been hired to accompany the Count when he went to meet the beast, and it was a pity he didn't stay. If he had been with Lord Dolce, he would have killed anyone who dared to hurt him. Kana was calming him down at that time. The hero thought about how sentimental that young man was when he was drunk, and he decided to take a moment to ask Suriru, believing that all good knights were like that under the leadership of danger. But Goliath explained that this was not the case. It was a case of the corrupt knight squad, and he left with some of his subordinates. The third squad leader was Jaban. He stayed with his squad, and half of their troops, besides, hired many talented magic knights. And in general, Mr. Dolce walked past everyone and didn't end up with anyone understanding. Our hero listened to the young man, paying attention to some details for himself and thinking about it to himself. There were many knights in the estate, so it was impossible to know who was talking to Dolce. After a long time, alcohol that Goliath said to our hero, who is in his heart, and after that he decided to accompany them home because it was dangerous in the city. After arriving at our plantation, the hero saw his subordinate, Baze, waiting for the young man inside his room. Baze was ready to inform him about the information he found today, contacting Mr. Sumeragi. Turning to our hero, Baze thought that he must have found something important, so he asked to see it with his own eyes. In the next moment, the room changed when Kana noticed, and the skeleton said that this place is a virtual room that recreates what he sees with his own eyes. Our hero saw a portrait, and it was the same woven woman as before. When Kana explained, the skeleton noticed that everything was true. This place even reproduced the scratches on the paper and the dust on the back of the furniture. Everything was the same and exactly what our hero was looking for. The next moment, a drawer in front of our hero opened, revealing a stack of letters, and one letter flew out. The letter was for the doctor, from Irie Fuzzle, a name our hero had never heard before. The people looked at the letter carefully, opened it, and started reading. The letter said that he had entrusted someone to get rid of the traitor's child, the fox, whom he cursed, that for all his efforts, one day he would make him a baron. Our hero was amazed that Baze could find something like this, the evidence needed. Hana understood because this was their plan. But does this mean that Dolce is herself? The girl couldn't be the final guard, and the key had no meaning for information that could be stolen and erased. When the young man realized this, but this is the original sealed letter that he could give to our hero. Our hero hid it there when Kana was surprised by what he read. It seemed like he was trying to understand it, to explain to him that Dockham was angry at him for not being able to save Dolce. But he knew the true identity of the culprit, and he still caught him. Our hero asked Kana to calm down. It's a common story about how an idiot fell for the Baron's trap and sneaked into his house. The master's servant decided to find him out, thinking he surely had something. He knew someone named Irie Fuzzle, and the girl was sure that it was his doing. The girl didn't know much about the upper class, but she was certain it involved a lot of talking and being friends with the Abu family. That's why it would be ridiculous if they directed their gaze towards Dolce's life. Our hero reflected on this, but he needed more information. That's why he turned to Bice. Our hero quickly conveyed his request to him. Of course, his desire was law to him, and the framework disappeared into the bed. Kana thought about this, realizing that it wasn't a dream that should happen. He assumed that Altelius was also involved in it. The danger was clear to our hero, but he couldn't say for sure about it. He thought to himself that if they were also targeting Ali's life, he would be poisoned at the same time. Maybe it wasn't being hunted anymore, or maybe he had already fallen into someone's hands. Tsukuru pondered for a long time because they didn't know the extent of Irie Fuzzle's influence, and Dockham didn't have anyone to trust. The only person they were sure had no connection to everything. There was a person who was insulted in a letter to Kana, and our hero thought about it all, letting go of his own robe and telling Kana that he would take care of a little bit of this business, and asked her not to open the door for anyone except him and only eat food. Our hero went out and thought about the fact that Ollie's camouflage was hidden. At that moment, when he wore the hermit's code, his personal equipment became immune to those who were below his level. Our hero realized it was already morning and heard the news of their training in the field. Looking out the window, he saw the knight swinging a ball. He thought it was like practicing in a sports club. He immediately moved to this arena where people were talking about how their captain was too strict and they wanted to be under the command of the rotten captain or Goliath. This captain acted desperate because he didn't want to lose to the other two captains of the Beastman race, Jiban and the Talented, who were talked about yesterday. And on that day, when they both went together with Dolce, something like this happened. And with the witches too, as they whispered after the death of Messiah. Dockham replaced the head of the witches, and he and his followers had gone too far. After listening to all this, our hero understood. And a few days ago, the rotten captain scolded a young man who was chatting with his colleague. Our hero didn't realize at all that he was eavesdropping on everything and condemned his participation in the doctor's outburst of anger with the guest. Our heroes now realize that it is indeed the same young man who should have belonged to Asia's that has also been disappointed. Dockham promoted, and his group won, making the only princess a slave. Some say that the death of Messiah was not an accident, but that he was eliminated by Dockham. People are talking about it so much that others can hear it from afar. If the servants hear about their wrongdoing, then surely these two things will happen. Meanwhile, others are discussing it. The Guild of Travelers, which has started selling onigiri, says they are great. When our hero hears this rumor, he is happy because his onigiri is popular. After walking past the soldiers, our hero overhears their conversation and now realizes that there seemed to be more people involved at the dock than he thought. At that moment, while walking around the property, he finds a young man playing ball. Tsukuru immediately remembers the words about Dolce because the young man is always busy playing ball. He even broke a branch of our tree. Our hero thinks it's him, but then someone calls out Cloud, who is in front of him, and the young man turns towards them. His mother is here, and our hero is greeted by an unexpected princess. The young man didn't expect to see her and asks who is in front of him. The princess says that it is indeed the rotten wife Alicia and their son, Cloud. The young man bows to our hero, delighted to meet him, and introduces himself as Cloud Rotten. The princess says that after Dolce's death, the young man often came to support her and her father, who should have been our heroes. Our hero understands this. Alicia's uncle's friend counted the eerie fuzzle and introduced his daughter to the girl standing next to him. After hearing this name, our hero realized that this was the person he needed. Meanwhile, she told them that they would go for breakfast and also sent the servant Hana to call Sumeragi. Hana was standing in front of Kana's door at that time when she wanted to invite her to join the others. After introducing her to the hero's niece, our hero chased after her daughter, and the girl herself tried to figure out what all of this meant. This Irish fuzzle sent a letter to the doctor confirming the elimination of Dolce and his niece. He was a rotten husband, and his descendants often visited the Ash family. After this incident, Kana really came just to entertain her and his family. Our hero wondered while Baze followed her. The girls immediately turned around as they saw something there. Our hero explained that it seemed like their imagination had run wild, and he wanted to find out what was happening here. Turning to the princess, she decided to clarify some details. She had noticed that Tsukuru seemed very close to the wife and children of the knight. Since then, they had been eating together as if the princess and her servant were the master and his servant. The princess noticed that the Rotten family was the main branch of the Abus family, serving as their leaders for many generations in the royal detachment. The head of the family was the Rotten father owned by our hero. He now concluded that this meant that they were indeed the closest relatives of the Abus family. If Denner did not have children, then it was likely that he would become Rotten, or Cloud would become the heir. Now everything is clear, and our hero wonders if it's possible for Ali and Cloud to get married and lead the Abus family, which is where the princess is surprised, and the young man shouts that it's impossible. I believe he is not worthy of being a princess's husband. He is uneducated, unlike the Lord, but he is younger and smaller than the princess, because Cloud is just a little child who considers himself to be like that. The princess laughs and says that in 10 years, when he becomes an attractive young man, her father can consider giving him a chance. The young man asks not to be laughed at, and at that moment our hero notices a smirk on his nephew's face. They enter the dining room, and when their father sees Ali, he asks if Altelius will join them for breakfast. Hannah is also there, and she tells me that she has been to Kana's room before, but the girl didn't do it. Our hero sat quietly, observing the scene while talking to his sword, hoping the girl was safe. He explained to me that Kana was no longer weak enough to let the servant commit suicide. If she wanted to end her life, she would have done it already. The princess suggested that Hannah return to work, and the girl asked our hero for permission to pour water. As the water was poured into his glass, our hero noticed alcohol poison in it. He was surprised to be poisoned again, while the others seemed unaware. Hannah, with shaking hands, poured the water from a pitcher. The princess noticed something was amiss with our hero and thought he wanted Kana present. She called him over, but he assured her everything was fine. Just then, the princess's father interrupted, asking about the progress of the investigation. When his nephew heard about it, he was surprised. The princess's father realized he had not been informed, as Mr. Sumeragi had been instructed to investigate the girl's death. He was taken aback by not being included, and everyone apologized. It was clear they were gathered at a difficult time, not knowing what was happening. The nephew also apologized, and they reassured him not to worry. Our hero kept a close eye on the girl, and the next moment Tsukuru noticed that so far she had not realized any new conclusions that she had just found as clues. Hearing this danger was very surprising, and for everyone it seemed so promising but expected from our hero. After that, the young man left the dining room while his nephew was talking to someone. After catching up with our hero, Cloud apologized to Lord Sumeragi for what happened. He explained that he was investigating the case on behalf of Dolce, a young boy who was trying to find out if he could help in any way. Our hero asked if his mother had instructed him to ask about it, as he believed she was clearly involved. Cloud explained that this was not his case, and besides, when he grew up, he wanted to become a great knight from the Abus family, just like his father. He practiced martial arts and swordsmanship every day, as he was born to protect the Abus family. In addition, the young boy explained that Dolce and Altelius always treated him well. He also loved them like his siblings, and would not forgive the person who killed Dolce. The young boy believed that Altelius could also be in danger, so he felt obligated to protect him instead of Cloud, as he was sure Altelius would like it. Our hero watched the boy start to cry and thought to himself that even though he seemed weak like a sister, he believed that if the boy could do it, this would not have happened. It would be better for him to stay close to Ollie and protect him. The young boy believed that he had to protect him even at the risk of his own life. Our hero thought the same as his father when he returned to his room and saw Kana sleeping, pouring water on her. He didn't understand how the girl could sleep so much when they had to go to Seidel's shop. And when she woke up, Seidel's shop, where the merchant was waiting, had been waiting for so long. He said it was okay and greeted Lord Sumeragi. Our hero wanted to ask something to our hero, but then their attention was disturbed by a girl who worked at the store while the men were busy. She wanted to choose a new dress for Kana, as seen in the clothing store. The deceptive employee looked quite good. Strangely, our hero was shocked by this statement. The Beastman employee kept arguing with Tsukuru because he believed Kana also dressed provocatively, as the girl said. But our hero wanted to reject the girl's explanation that our hero took advantage of his position, and the young man had to agree that the clothes were not for Kana, while the employee invited Kana to change clothes. The clothes that our hero wanted to tell Seidel something he would take care of. He asked me to take care of it, of course. Seidel promised to take care of it and asked him to rely on him. Meanwhile, our hero continued his reconnaissance mission. He knew that if he saw this, he might faint. At that time, he stood next to Baz, pointing to those disgusting bones. Those 3 bones were the ones who killed Foe. It is true that these humans have the same intention to kill. It is likely that it was felt at the crime scene. They were killed elsewhere and brought here to feed our animals. Our hero understands what these people want, to eliminate evidence, but they cannot produce bones alone. In this case, Base offered to hand it over to him and leave our hero. Meanwhile, Sumeragi returned to the store and they showed her a dress that looked even better. The store employee said that everything suited Kana, so she wasn't sure what to choose. She thought the best option would be something she could move freely in. Our hero immediately agreed to take what she was wearing now. The Beastman quickly warned that it shouldn't happen, as it cost 100,000 gold. Kana thought it was expensive, but our hero liked it, so they bought it and took the dress they left in the store when they were still young. The girl noticed that Kana was still wearing the same clothes she made for her, and she thought it was strange. The girl didn't want to wear the dress now. Kana shared that it was a dress she bought for her and it was important to her. The girl didn't want it to get dirty, so she would only wear it for important occasions and keep it. Our hero was even a little embarrassed by words like that. The next moment, as we continued our journey down the road, a stranger ran towards us and stabbed Kana with a knife. But then he noticed that the girl wasn't hurt and he stabbed her with the knife. The girl realized that this was no ordinary dress. Tsukuru Sumeragi and her servant greeted them and told them that they had to kill them. When she saw the man running towards her, Kana cried with tears streaming down her face, saying that she would never forgive him for this. How dare he do this to a dress that God had bought for her? The next moment, she attacked the young man, and our hero thought of a cruel way to deal with him. It seemed like the people standing next to him started attacking Kana again, but the girl was able to fend off their attacks. They believe that it is indeed weak to use their new magical fire spear on them, after seeing how easily they dealt with some of the recent ones. However, the girl still uses her wooden magic and binds everyone together after seeing their opponents trying to think about why they attacked them. But it turns out that it might be because of their investigation. They wanted to silence Sumeragi on our hero's day. They were attacked in a different way that night. They even tried to poison them in the mansion. Kana, thinking it was impossible, Baze appeared behind Kana, and she immediately shivered because she was very afraid of this skeleton. The hero treated her calmly, and the human understood that they had evidence of the letter. So they returned to the Abus family knowing that the problem could be solved and followed our hero as they returned to the mansion. Stomping through the corridors and breaking into the lady's office, trying to find out if they had really found the real killer and what it all meant since God was here. Goliath told Dockham that he was in the presence of God and could not behave like he did when he saw our hero asking if his wound had healed after the attack. And after seeing our young hero, he was very unhappy with the voice that was here, and what surprised him was Kana standing next to him, watching Lord Dockham break the door that he saw Kana very threateningly, which made the girl tremble in fear. But then when she exhaled because she wouldn't do anything in this matter, she greeted Lord Sumeragi Goliath, informed that God and the three princesses, the leaders of the corrupt knight army, Goliath and Jaban, as well as the head of the witch tribe, Dockham, and the servant Hannah, were present here. This is all he asked for, to gather here. The only thing is that our hero did not see his wicked wife and son. He explained that his son said he wanted to protect the princess and allowed him to train with the squad. But if our hero needed to meet the young man, then of course the wicked one would call him. Tsukuru didn't think there was a need for it. Everyone asked our hero to tell them what happened to him. He reported that this would happen, but first everyone had to swear that they would remain silent about what they would see here. He was reported if it would help to find the truth. Then he swore, and the princess also swore, like everyone else. Then our hero decided he would do it. Baze appeared behind them, and everyone immediately jumped back in surprise and turned to God. They said that he had summoned the Jaban monster, asking everyone to stop, and also asking the princess not to approach because it was dangerous. But the princess had already felt this aura many times before, saying that it didn't pose a threat. The prince thanked the girl for her understanding and turned to Altelias. He told her that he was his servant, Tsukuru Sumeragi, following his master's orders to call his soul at that moment. When Dolce appeared in front of them, everyone was shocked and tried to figure out if it was true that his soul had been called by Baiz, as our hero had said. When the princess tried to touch him, our hero explained that she couldn't do it, surprising Kana, who couldn't say anything after seeing what was in front of him. The princess didn't understand if it was true. It was very possible that our hero understood that it was difficult for them to believe this, and to prove that it was real. All she could ask him was if our hero wouldn't be able to do it. The girl was surprised. The young man could even speak. Then, the princess asked Dolce if he remembered the color of the ball they played in the yard. Dolce answered that the ball was bright green, with the same color as the ornament in Kana's hair, so he remembered it clearly. The princess kept asking the young man questions, such as about his late mother's name, and the young man gave her the correct answer, saying that her name was Monica Abus. At that moment, the princess started crying when she spoke to her father and sister, apologizing for leaving them earlier. Her sister apologized for her actions, saying that she should have stayed with them that day. She apologized for not being there to protect her if something happened to her instead of Dolce. Dolce wanted her and her father to be happy and live a long life, so she could only be in this form. She asked him to listen to her will. When our heroes saw how they all started crying, she apologized for interrupting this emotional reunion, but they had to continue. Her father, who had given in, understood her feelings. They didn't gather here for this and asked them to continue, and I looked over there. That's when the young man was asked the main question, questioning whether he really knew who killed her. Dolce stared at Kana while knowing the young man with tears in his eyes, waiting for what answer he would give. Dolce reported that it wasn't him. It was a group of 3 people. He didn't know when he was told that Khan was waiting for him outside the wall. He went out and was ambushed, and after that the 3 attackers left, with one of them returning with Kana. She desperately tried to save her, but she lost consciousness in Na's embrace and no longer remembered what happened next. Then her father wanted to ask Sumaga who these people were and why they were here. He asked my lord to stop because he should not believe this suspicious thing, which is believed by our hero, called that the young man might be deceiving them all. The danger stopped. He said he was talking to Sumeragi, and our hero found that they were living in a slum area discussing this matter. When the danger was heard about the slum area, he asked Goliath to leave immediately, but our hero asked us to listen to him first, because these people were no longer in the slum area or in this city at all, and the danger thought they had escaped. Tsukuru explained that this was not the case. Bays returned to show him more people in front of them at that time. Kana from the 3 saw a man he knew because this young man was the one who brought him to the crime scene at that time, and everyone understood that the 3 of them testified against Kana and court, as the danger said he saw these people, and he knew it was them who had killed Dolce by drawing a sword. He wanted to attack them. Our hero explained that it was useless. Tsukuru said that these people had long been dead, and if the danger remembered correctly because he could not touch Dolce and stab them with a sword, it was also useless. Of course, the danger realized, and our hero said everything was true, but he could not contain his anger, could not accept that the villains were indeed dead. Our hero asked him to be allowed to finish his report because it was requested of him. He discovered the true cult perpetrator during the Dolce death trial. The real culprit, the princess, fell to her knees after realizing that there was someone else involved in the murder besides the 3 of them. It was true, just as someone had approached him in the room and told him that Kana was waiting for him outside the wall. He had to answer and also find out who ordered them to kill Dolce. If this person is here now, then the 3 of them should point to him, and everyone immediately pointed at Colonel Jiban when they saw it. Jiban directed everyone in shock, including himself, who now had been revealed. Jiban pretended that he didn't know anything about it, and asked them to believe him because it was part of the young human plan that everyone aimed for. He told them that they would listen to him later. Jiban didn't understand why they believed this young human, and not him. It was a misunderstanding, and he couldn't be blamed for anything except at that moment when Goliath attacked Jiban from behind and told him that he wouldn't try to escape. The escape attempt only confirmed his guilt. Jiban tried to explain that he wasn't behind all of this. He was just following orders when his head wanted to say something. It exploded. No one understood what happened, except for Goliath, who explained that he had just knocked him down and suddenly his head exploded. Everyone turned to the documents, the same documents that he explained that indeed they were just trying to catch Dolce's killer, and apparently he had mistaken the scapegoat. Jiban could only explain that he was framed. After some time, he could have called it off because they weren't sure if he would misbehave again. Our hero only realized that the doctor was a complete idiot when Jiban was already dead. This meant that when Bays called his soul, he wouldn't be very helpful in this investigation. Tsukura handled it with gratitude. If there were any questions, then the calculation had to decide for himself whether he wanted to hear the rest. Then, Danger asked Jiban what he wanted to say and who ordered the murder of Dolce. Jiban said it was a disaster over the murder of Dolce. He promised him a higher position than his own, and that's when Dockham realized he had been betrayed. He reached out to Hannah, telling her not to move. If she didn't, he would explode her head like Jabans in front of our hero. Our hero reacted calmly to this. He didn't understand if he really thought about hiding behind the life of a servant. But Dockham didn't understand why the young man was so calm. He was a dirty, naughty child, arranging the murder of a nobleman's blood. It might not have seemed to him that in this situation, his servant was worthless. The princess asked not to kill him because Hannah was a good servant. They couldn't kill him. Dockham controlled him, telling him he had to do what he said. Right then, Hannah told them not to think he wasn't as good as they thought. When talking to the princess, Dillam tried to silence him and asked him to stop talking. Hannah said he was a traitor who had threatened her orders. Sumaragi and Kana were killed, but all efforts failed. Hannah considered himself a villain. He asked not to be bothered and fairly killed him. He spoke to my lord, and then they saw the document disturbed by the girl's count ordering Goliath and the Rotten to attack next time. The girl on one side and Dockham on the other side were injured. She was bleeding heavily and thought she would go to die, but people assured her that she shouldn't worry about it, but she wouldn't die so soon. She asked the servant to do something because he should know what would happen if he obeyed. The danger is now known, and she understands that this man in front of her who is being held by his people has planned the murder from the same place. He tried to get out of it, saying that he was very sorry but accidentally killed Jiban so he wouldn't be accused of doing something he didn't do, and said it was just a trap document. He didn't understand how dangerous it could be to trust the words of a servant and a stranger who called it as evidence. They have no evidence that he was actually involved in this because he deceived them all, but there is no point in leaving a trace. No one will believe him, which is dangerous to ask him to stop making excuses because it's useless to look at Sumaragi. No one understands why the young man has been flying the plane all this time. That's when our hero launched the plane for a reason. The princess noticed that there was something written on them. She took one of the letters and saw a somewhat clear handwriting. A letter addressed to Dockham said that he had done a good job and his contribution to eliminating those who had committed the cunning murder. This fox is very useful. When the time comes, she will give it to him. He received the title of Baron. However, they all read this letter together. Everyone was surprised by what was written there, and it must be from Eri Fuzel, just like our heroes. He informed everyone present, and when Dockham heard this, he didn't understand where the young man got this letter from our hero. We considered it as a confession. Tsukuru explained that everything was fine, the man behind it all was Fuzel. He ordered people like that to kill Dolce, then Dockham ordered Jiban to arrange the crime, and Lord did it. He intended to blame Jiban in case the murder failed. Then the rest of the plan was entrusted to someone else to carry out the Altelius train robbery and kill him. He subdued the EIS family to someone from the Fuzel family. When Goliath heard about the wagon robbery, he remembered how they were attacked by bandits when our hero saved them again. Ollie didn't believe it was just a successful outcome, or that there was only one person from the Fuzel family because this letter was addressed to my rotten niece, Alicia. She couldn't believe it and closed her ears when he was talking about Cloud and Alicia's scheduled movie screening for Rotten. He showed Alicia when he met her, and the girl introduced herself as Alicia. She was happy to meet him and said the same words that counted Fuzel. Her uncle forcefully forced her to marry, and if she married, she had to live differently from how she used to, and she would feel lonely. Rotten explained it, and she didn't oppose it. He understands how it feels to only hear when rejection is given, so he decides that he will look for another reason and ask her to forgive him. Besides, a beautiful girl like Alicia should deserve one of the best things, according to Alicia. Bad is probably opposing her. Surprised that he pulled her arm while thinking that it might not be like that, the girl explained that she changed her mind when the man showed her the photo, but still she decided that she would wait for an answer as long as she wanted for him. After some time, they got married and had a child. His hair and eyes were just like Alicia's eyes, and his nose and ears were like Bad's. He was very happy to see their child. Alicia smiled at the young man and was happy to have him in the clouds. Of course, after hearing the whole terrible situation and realizing that the letter was addressed to Alicia, Bad couldn't believe it. He wondered how much she had lied to him. One day, Bad remembered how he was sitting at the table, and his son came to him worried about something. Then Cloud told me that his mother told him again to marry Mrs. Alicia and become part of the Abus family. He believed that he had indeed done so, saying that this fate was intended for the eldest son of Dolce. Cloud also thought so because he wanted to be a knight, not a hit. When he grows up, he wants to be like his father or grandfather. He wants to protect his family. The city's society and his mother, remembering all of this, closed his eyes, knelt in front of everyone. Everyone tried to figure out what it meant and if he knew anything about it. He had tried the rotten thing with horror, saying that he didn't know anything, that he didn't understand why it happened. He was only thinking about Alicia, and he ran out the door that the princess wanted. She chased after him because she understood what he wanted to do next. The rotten one ran towards his son who was practicing. Alicia was watching him at that moment, seeing her father worried. The rotten one immediately turned to Alicia because he knew that she knew everything. At that moment, the princess and everyone else tried to stop the same thing. Someone angrily reported it because it happened in this matter. He had no other choice but to do it. The knight from the Ash family should have killed him right then and there when his own son stopped him and hurt him. His feared father shouted that he wouldn't forgive him. Cloud stood beside his mother and asked her to leave because he belonged to him. The father shouted that he wouldn't forgive him. Cloud shouted that he did give up on it. It was a knight's duty to protect the weak. At that moment, the princess asked the rotten one to just stay quiet, asking the princess to leave because it was dangerous here. At that moment, the rotten one looked at his son who started crying and lowered his sword. His father apologized to his son when he saw him. He was shocked to see his father put down his sword. He turned to me and said that he was sorry because he couldn't kill his wife. Therefore, he decided to pay for his mistake with his own life. At that moment, he attacked himself in front of everyone. Seeing this, his son rushed to meet his father. Everyone was shocked by what happened, and they needed to contact a doctor immediately to heal him. At that moment, Kana looked at our hero carefully and then decided that she could do it. Seeing Kana walking towards them, Cloud hoped that she would be able to, but she wouldn't succeed as others thought. At that moment, when the girl used enhanced treatment and everyone saw what happened, it was a high-level healing. Of course, they knew she practiced, but not too much. At that time, she healed the rotten disease. The girl reported that she was fine without realizing that the son began to cry, and at that moment, danger turned into Alicia. Alicia told the story of an Irishman named Fuzzell, who was her uncle and ordered the murder of Dolce. Alicia reported this while kneeling down. She was very sorry and only recently found out about it after his death. Her uncle told her that she had no choice but to make Cloud the head of the Abbas family. Of course, danger arose when she heard this story and turned to Goliath. She asked them to prepare for war as requested by Lord Dolce. Everyone stopped, and no one understood why. Dolce explained that war would only bring disappointment and sadness to people. She didn't want to see all the people like this because of her, so she was asked not to start a war. When Mr. Sumeragi called him, he said that Kana had been falsely accused, so Dolce returned to save him because his father also wanted this. As far as he knew, everything happened exactly as the young man said in his effort to save Kana and find the real killer. Kana, or Dolce, started crying as he explained that Mr. Sumeragi had told him what had happened and thanked Kana. He thanked him because he didn't give up after his death and saved the rotten lives. There was no reason to cry and apologize, so he asked him to smile. Dolce was happy that he could say goodbye to everyone. He begged them, the city and its people who loved him so much, to protect them and overcome his father and everyone. In the present, he was tied up and taken to the underground prison. He cursed everything because the Messiah was already dead. Cana was in exile. Abus's child was already dead, and so on. The only thing left was to get rid of Canaan, who had become a slave, and of course he was not happy, because he had never seen our previous heroes in the city curse him at that time. Tsukuru was watching him from the window. He wasn't here because he wanted to be a sword. He understood that because his case was closed, it was time to go and kill someone with his lord, speaking to his lord. Our hero agrees with the sword because it's time to go. Meanwhile, the slave collar has been removed from Kana and is now completely free to report it. They also prepared new clothes for the girl and gave it to her. After seeing this outfit, Kana realized that one of them had torn when he caught the girl working at Seidel's store. Mr. Sumeragi said he would patch it up and reinforce his kana. Kana was very grateful to Mr. Sumeragi and took the clothes. He returned to the residence, greeted Mr. Sumeragi, thanked him for the service provided to him, and they detained 20 more people working with Dakam. Now they have half the number of Abus family members. He also said that he was ready to take on more responsibilities with his wife. Our hero believes it's better not to start a war after hearing the last thing Tsukuru said. He explained that he wouldn't do it because Dolce stopped him. Instead of war, he wanted to accuse the conspirators of attacking the royal family. Although the letters belong to our hero, the evidence he obtained is not enough for this. The one he has been doing dark things for quite some time. He wants our hero to find some more evidence. Our hero realizes that he wants to be assigned. He got a job again and wanted Tsukuru to find more evidence. He asked for help once again, turning to Mr. Sumeragi. He will pay him 20 or even better, 30 million gold. At that time, the sword informed Mr. Sumeragi that 30 million would be enough to buy a house or even two. Our heroes believed that sometimes money is more valuable than life itself, and they agreed that danger would soon befall them. The evidence they needed was already in front of them, as they saw the paper in front of them. He didn't understand if it was true or not, but our heroes said it was proof of the Irish smugglers' illegal slave trade and drug trafficking. The man was shocked that our heroes could be in danger. Tsukuru didn't understand where it all came from, so he immediately took all the evidence. The young man explained that he had just ordered Bays to find them before asking where his money was. He should have paid him, and Tsukuru did his part. He ordered him to immediately hand over all his belongings, as the money was already prepared. They returned to their room, restoring it to its original state. If they wanted to come back, they would be happy to wait for our heroes. Meanwhile, Kana changed clothes and the princess was very happy. She was glad that the girl had returned. Of course, Kana also thanked Mrs. Altelius for her words. The girl asked if Kana wanted something if he was tired, but Kana was ready to go back to work any time. Her father might leave soon, and Kana could go back to work when he finished processing his papers. At that time, the princess ran with Kana to the study where the man were. Kana apologized to everyone and greeted Mr. Sumeragi, saying that he wanted to leave with him. Upon hearing this, the princess was very surprised, not understanding what Kana was talking about. Our hero also did not understand this because his contract with her had ended, and they no longer owed anything to each other. The girl asked if he wanted her, if he could make her his slave again. She would be very lonely in this city without him, and she knew it. The man was also very lonely. He knew because he felt the same way when he was betrayed, slandered, when he hated everyone and everything. Therefore, he did not want to leave her alone, and asked to be allowed to go with her. The hero saw how much Kana wanted to leave. He asked if he knew who he was. He would. He did not know. He thought it was something bad that our hero experienced. He was surprised because the girl was satisfied with this. She also said that even if the whole world and God himself became her enemy, she would not turn away from him. Tsukuru saved her and asked to be allowed to repay her, just like our hero, who was touched by her words and very surprised. Therefore, he turned to another. He asked if they agreed. The princess would not do it. She understood what our hero was talking about because the girl was lonely. It was already clear. Kana was concerned about her, not understanding why the young man was pressuring her to say such embarrassing things. Our hero used to think that embarrassment was normal, but when danger struck, it reminded him of how he fell in love with his wife. They exchanged vows of eternal love, not caring about what others said. Reflecting on those memories, he shared them with others. Refusing to listen to it again, he insisted that they stop immediately. The young man agreed to take him along, and even the sword consented. Kana agreed, though he anticipated potential challenges ahead. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Goliath apologized for the deception, revealing Hannah now dressed in a slave collar and handcuffs. People explained that she wanted to accompany Mr. Sumeragi. The young man couldn't comprehend why she was so insistent on going with him, especially if she had ill intentions. Hannah's strong desire for fate's difficult path prompted Danger to allow her to explain. He brought up the incident when he tried to poison Mr. Sumeragi. As a consequence, he was punished and forced into slavery. However, it wasn't entirely his fault. You see, his sister was being held captive as a means of blackmail. Hannah, being aware of this danger, decided to give him a chance to redeem himself by surrendering to Mr. Sumeragi. The princess noticed that Mr. Sumeragi had to agree because Hannah did all of this for her brother, not out of malicious intent. Believing that it was all for her brother's sake, our hero also decided to consult Kana for his opinion. Kana was taken aback when our hero offered him the opportunity to speak his mind, and he pondered over it. Deep down, Kana knows that the girl is trying to harm someone else. Kana reveals that Hannah will work tirelessly until her death, with no one to rescue or help her escape, just like Kana did to trap her. It would be cruel if our hero were to refuse, so the girl would have to buy her own freedom and become a servant in the abusive house. Our hero believes that, of course, he could agree, and the girl swears loyalty for the rest of her life. When they return to Seidel's shop, Hannah informs our hero about his intention to make Kana a slave again. Our hero explains that it's just a formality, even though Mr. Sumeragi said so. He must remember the bad attitude of forcing everything in this country. Seidel wants to be punished severely to defend the contract with our hero. He wants to see what happens to Kana, and if anything happens to him, he will take him anywhere. The hero asks him to calm down because he won't do anything, while also reminding him to be careful when leaving the city. If Tsukuru needs anything, he should go to him because he has a lot of resources. Our hero assures him not to worry because everything will be fine. However, before leaving, he needs to attend to something. At that moment, Mr. Seidel's assistant helps the girls choose suitable clothes for their journey. Before our hero goes to Seidel's shop, the man asks the others to enjoy it about the soldiers losing so many people and the stench of his departure. The soldiers' morale was low. Goliath couldn't lead the troops alone, even though they didn't intend to fight alone. But if they were attacked now, they might not be able to defend the city. It's dangerous to say that he would like the young man to teach his troops the art of war. Mr. Sumeragi greeted the warlord, and he also wanted to meet him again. Meanwhile, Cloud spoke to his father, telling him what happened. Grandma brought them some food, but their father locked himself in his room and didn't answer his son. Cloud heard someone knocking on their door, and when he opened it, he saw our hero in front of him, along with Hannah and Kana. The young man was very surprised that Mr. Sumeragi and the others were here. When he asked our hero where the rotten boy was, he said that his father was upstairs in his room. Our hero went up the stairs and knocked on the door with one punch. Meanwhile, Cloud sat at the table and approached our hero. After seeing Mr. Sumeragi, the Rotten One was ordered to strengthen security and not let anyone in where our hero was. He explained that they would be weak, and because they obeyed him, he had to make them stronger. Our hero captured him, and then the Rotten One happened. He didn't understand what he wanted from him, especially since he was expelled from the army. Our hero reported that the Rotten One left him with no choice and turned to Mr. Sumeragi. The Rotten One himself didn't understand anything that our hero took, and he led him along with Cloud to look at his father, starting to worry. Kana asked him not to do this. He asked him to trust his master. The youth will take care of everything while our hero is exhausted at home. Everyone is relieved that the captain has returned because they couldn't do anything without him. Goliath also joins them, as he is now responsible for the troops. He wants to talk to Goliath, who is unreliable, to get information about the Count and the princess waiting for his return. The hero understands this, but Lord Dolce died because of his negligence. On the other hand, Goliath is not suitable for such a role, as he believes heroes are associated with rottenness. Meanwhile, the hero turns to the deceitful man and asks what he plans to do. Realizing that he doesn't want to return their belongings, the hero doesn't understand why he should help someone who lives in the forest and is struggling to survive. It seems like this man is giving up on him and just mocking him, which makes the hero angry. Many of his childhood friends have also felt this way. In this case, basically, Goliath asks why our hero doesn't leave. Our hero reports that he's tired of all this, and they will all go with him there. He will train them, and ask if they can at least do this, talking to the former young captain. The man says that training will start at dawn, and they will go to a great place, Boar Forest, in the capital sunset of the kingdom of Luke Sandal, the setting sun, talking to the hero who was ordered to wake up because it's unclear how he will fight the Demon King. If they fell from such a blow while Ionos was treating others and everyone thanked him for it, they were suddenly transported to another world. They trained day after day until they were completely exhausted. But why did they do it against the Demon King at all when the boy was talking about it? She felt sick. The girl started to fall, and Mickey caught her while trying to ask if she was okay. She worked until exhaustion and had to stop doing it. Only a pure virgin could heal compared to others, as everyone understood at that time. All friends were training while she was thinking about Tsukuru, who was there alone. He remembered how he told him that they would meet again. She realized that the girl was still worried about him. Mickey might think so too. Her girlfriend was worried 6 times. She was so worried. She was also very surprised to report that Tsukuru was just his childhood friend. She tried to comfort her, telling her that she was sure everything was fine with the young man. It was valued as an S for those girls at that time. They had to put themselves first before meeting him. She was a very beautiful girl, and she didn't understand what she was doing after hearing how her friend cheered for Ionos. While our heroes went with all the soldiers to the forest, she mentally asked our hero to take care of himself. The soldiers fought, and our hero watched over them. Kana was trying to find out if everything was okay with them because he was experiencing déjà vu, remembering how he himself fought in this forest. Our hero explained that they were soldiers and had to prove that they didn't get their bread in vain. Hannah asked if she should join the training, and our hero explained that it wasn't necessary, as he had another plan for her. Now they would leave them and go to rescue her sister. Hearing that they would do it except for her sister, Hannah was surprised. As they went to the Fusel plantation, when our heroes arrived at the plantation, he saw her and realized that this was Hannah's younger sister being held captive by the man Hannah expected it from. He didn't mind if she went with him, as our hero reported that she was his sister's lover. Of course, she would go with them, and since she was being held hostage, they would just take her away. Hannah thanked the man for this. Our hero used his hiding skills and disguise to blend in with the girl. Then Kana saw her boyfriend disappear, but she didn't have those skills. They forgot about it, but Hannah also had the same skill as Tsukuru because she was a wolf remembered by Tsukuru. He offered her something to wear and use in front of him. The hermit's robe concealed the presence of creatures and people lower than its wearer when they entered Kana's residence. Our hero appeared in this dreadful area, believing that the man had just experienced something terrible. Everything felt scattered, and there were also statues of himself. Hannah's sister, Sonia, talked about it, but Hannah herself didn't think so. Everything was really bad, saying that her sister should be here somewhere. Baze immediately appeared and told him that his sister was in the basement. There was nowhere he couldn't find her, and he was very proud of that. He led our hero to the basement when he saw the bars behind him. Hannah's sister was trying to find out if there was a key by looking at her sister in the cell. Our hero didn't need it. He could only do it by pushing the bars using his enhanced skills. They passed through the underground prison where Hannah and Kana were. Hannah rushed to meet her sister, asking Sonia to wake up. Kana, she saw the girl in a serious condition, but she was safe and she would help her. Our hero stopped it because if he used magic, they would notice him. They had to get out of here first. At that moment, our hero looked at the girl and called out to Hannah's sister named Ayumu, remembering his life. Our hero realized that his life was full of failures. Maybe he found it, then lost it, found it again, and lost it once more. And now he had lost everything. It all ended in the world where he lived. He felt lost, entitled to live, and had nothing left from his entire deceased family. At least that's what our hero thought. The bottom line is, it belongs to Hannah's sister. Her boyfriend looks very similar to her. The girl watching over her thought it was a young man named Sumeragi Tsukuru doing a great job. She didn't even know what to expect from him. The girl watching over her thought that next time her world would be filled with joy and luck wherever it was, the gentle wind that brings luck everywhere. Since you met Susanoo, this world is empty, and he decided to rule it when he found the device. He was trying to figure out what it was and had to order everyone to fix the space-time wall. Otherwise, this world would end because everyone entering his world had already started dying in this ancient Japanese era called ghost kidnapping. Sometimes a few individuals get transported to another realm, which is usually not a big deal if it happens to one or two people over a few years. However, things took a turn when a summoning ritual transferred 100 people all at once. This sudden influx of people has put the new world on the verge of destruction. To make matters worse, the gods in this world are corrupt, and if the summoning continues, the protective wall will crumble. The girl believes that in order to prevent this catastrophe, she must engage in intimate relations with these gods. The number of people being summoned this time is usually insignificant, as their powers cannot affect the gods. They are merely forced to witness the smallest changes on Earth, which serves as a harsh reality for this world. None of them take responsibility for their actions, except for one child, who is the least affected by this world. He leads an unhappy life, observing the girl as she indulges in her hobby of cooking. Eventually, he decides to grant her the power to fight in this world and maximize her luck, believing that she will assist him in overcoming all the challenges they face. Our heroine, the goddess, has finally revealed that the time has come for her to take action against the corrupt gods who have been silently observing her. She believes that she must not waste her energy on trying to warn them about the consequences they will face for drawing attention to her. She realizes that she may have been too impulsive and needs to be more cautious. This time, she returns to the mansion with her sister Hannah, handing over their towels to her for safekeeping. At that moment, our hero is next to the stove, reminiscing about his previous life. Then he will go home and read the note from his sister, where she expresses her love for her brother and mentions that she went shopping with their parents. Their parents' food is in the kitchen, and they need to discuss it as soon as they arrive. That's when our hero starts to become interested in cooking. He smells the kitchen and realizes that his mother messed up the recipe again, and he still needs to fix it before they arrive. Rolling up his sleeves, our hero starts cooking while someone calls their house. Facing the person who was talking on the phone earlier, our hero drops his spoon. The bottom line is that he heard about the car accident. The car crashed into a truck, and the couple's daughter is a good person. The others are discussing it at the funeral. While our hero is looking at a photo of his family, he realizes that they have taken her in, protected her, and raised her as their own. Even she treats him like a relative. Everyone is trying to figure out what it all means. Tsukuru will do it now at this moment. Our hero remembers how he cried in his sleep and started crying in reality. Kana, who woke up at that time, was scared to see our hero and told him that Sanya had woken up and didn't see the man crying. He wanted to comfort him, but the young man in his robe asked him not to worry. After everything happened, he wiped his tears and went straight to the sauna. Hannah greeted him, and he turned to the man, thanking him for saving him. Hannah was very grateful to Kana for helping save her sister. She owed them a debt of gratitude. Our hero looked at the girl carefully and asked her to stop praising him and talking so much. It was necessary to feed the girl and use the perfect cooking of our hero's homeland. He reported that it was a meal from his homeland and it should please the sauna. He placed Ida next to the girl and she thanked our hero for this. Hannah also expressed her gratitude while Sanya carefully looked at what was in front of her and started eating, putting a spoonful of rice in her mouth. The girl thought about how delicious and soft the rice was. She wanted her sister to try it too. Meanwhile, the young man was watching the girl, and the more he looked at her, the more he saw Ayumu in her. But he understood that Yumi was already dead. He saw her lifeless body with his own eyes. She was cold and pale. Our hero decided to ask the girl if she needed anything else, and then he quickly inquired if she knew a country called Japan. When she heard about Japan, she thought for a while and then apologized, saying she had never heard of it. Our hero decided to ask if the girl had always lived in this country, or if she had amnesia, or if she had just been found here, or maybe she had some memories from that time. When Hannah spoke to the man, she told him that they were sisters who grew up together and were born from the same mother's womb, even though they ended up in different families. Our hero now understood and stopped asking her questions, but in his mind, he couldn't understand and answer the most important question: why this girl looked so much like his sister. Everyone was trying to figure out why the man was acting strange, but the young man just waved them off and apologized for asking, so he suggested they eat their food before it got cold. Our hero decided to leave the girls for now and follow Kana. He asked her to wait while he spoke to Mr. Sumeragi. He said that he has been acting very strange since he saved Sna and he wants to know the reason. Our hero reported that the girl looks very similar to his acquaintance, but he was mistaken. They should return to the forest as soon as possible, as the young man believes that Kana knows the truth. They should hurry, as Mr. Rotten and the others will be waiting. Next time, Kana asked me to tell him when our hero wants to know the real reason. The young man just looked at her and said that he will do it. In the Wolf Great Forest, everyone should move accordingly. Goliath asked his subordinates if they don't want to die. They should do it faster. At that moment, they all hunted the monster together with our hero. Goliath believed that if they called themselves the Abus family's knights, they should fight for their honor until the end. After they all started the battle, they defeated the big monster after a while, and they all leveled up immediately. That's how people thanked our hero, because it was their turn to help the young warriors with weapons like that, according to their increased power level of 100 times. Now they have reached level 1, which is great. They also don't need to be afraid of holding a party when they return. And the meat of the big bird is very delicious. As they all understood at that time when Goliath was encouraging Rothan, who was with all his warriors, now rejoicing over their victory. After this battle, they returned to the palace, but the rotten commander stood in front of the entrance, not wanting to go inside. He saw that he didn't pass the Goliath's threshold and didn't understand why. Rotten explained that he had done his duty, and they were all safe and sound, and they returned home with the desired title of the head of the house. But Rotten explained that he couldn't go through the Ibas family gate because his family had behaved badly. Everyone wanted to stop him somehow, but Rotten stood tall and believed that our heroes had done enough with Kana and the soldiers no longer needed his help. Our heroes asked not to be foolish because not only did the knights become stronger, but also themselves. She told Sumeragi that he was thinking of the dangerous danger of leaving high-level people like him in general. When Rotten's head sawed off, he was surprised by his words. He explained that his desire alone was not enough for him to do it. It could bring him back to the army once the main city guard had been created, especially for him. Besides, everyone said that bears sometimes appear in this environment, and if Rotten could defeat him, he would be of great benefit to them. At that time, they didn't even suspect that the bear was our hero, wearing it believed in the form of a cloak. The rotten villain couldn't let his lover do this. Now he is the head of the house. The princess asked the villain to shut up. The house believed that the villain reminded him of the people of that place where he was born. Danger has been watching him since he was little, and it would be a shame to lose something like that on a promising night. Goliath heard it. Dengaro is pushing him to be kind and hit his partner. In return, he believes that danger is happening. There should be good and bad things to listen to him. The villain understands that we must agree and ask us to do it. He accepts his gratitude after bowing to him. The rotten master swears to belong to his master's personal weapon for the rest of his life. This news is immediately reported to his son, and he is very happy with his son. The father is aware. Our hero starts feeding the girls. Afterwards, he fights the Sanya, who is eating the food. He is very happy because it tastes delicious. This is how he gains the power of hand skills that he is now learning. Acceleration skills are also learned thanks to food. Our hero, the girl, thinks that the man has the best food. Hannah notices her brother gobbling down his food and reminds him not to forget how she herself gained the ability to strengthen her body. The recovery effect worked well, but for the man who was kept in the basement, It seems that Sanya is also our energetic hero. However, in the end, they were just as clever as Hannah described. They also had a high resistance to hunger, and were able to survive with very little food and water. Luckily, Sanya's sister was unharmed. Sanya didn't want to be taken away while she was sleeping, so she would resist with all her might. In the mansion, our hero borrowed everything from furniture to wallpaper. Now he will send a letter of accusation that will finally reach the king, and because he is fine, it's finally worth waking him up. As long as her sister is around, everything is fine. Now Sanya can enjoy delicious food every day, as she happily tells herself. Our hero asks if they want to go with him, but the young man explains that it would be safer to stay here. Sanya doesn't understand if her sister will really leave her here. It doesn't feel fair for her sister to handle the situation and not guide her like a spoiled child. Sanya rushes to our hero, tears in her eyes, and asks if she can bring her sister along. Of course, when she sees her sister, she can't resist. Thanks to the young man, the girls immediately think that our hero has some kind of weakness for little girls. Tsukuru tries to prove that it's not the case at all. As for the equipment, they need to contact the designer who is the goal. Our hero has already left early, and even Hannah heard about it. Sanya also heard that the designer clothing is very comfortable and needs to be seen in the catalog, as far as her sister is concerned. Sanya knows that she prefers lighter clothes than before. The girl's name is Sledge, and she seems to belong to our hero's group. Looking at her characteristics, she is a level 8 professional fighter. Her sister's name is Hannah, who is a battle queen at level 28. After checking their characteristics, our heroes set off. They realize that they are in danger and decide to leave the danger behind. Our hero reports that he is staying alone, so they have to come and visit anytime. Everyone at the farm will be happy to see our hero again. The princess also asks Sumeragi to take care of herself if the young man with the family dagger becomes a member of their family. Next, the princess rushes towards Kana and Hannah, hugging them and asking them to come whenever they want. They are like her sisters, and she appreciates them very much. The girls bid farewell to the princess with tears in their eyes and promise to do it all while crying. Our hero wants this scene to end as soon as possible, so they have to find the path where the girls are and figure out where our hero is taking them. They explain that the great forest was born, and the girls didn't expect to go to the forest again. In the beginning, Sumeragi wanted to train the young man, Hannah, and Sanya. Now they slow down and take their time. They don't want to draw too much attention outside of Beast City. He never knew that those who paid attention to them thought they were so gentle after seeing how passionate everyone was. Our heroes decided it was okay to go greet the man. Sanya and Hannah looked at him carefully. Here, the hero asked them to stop and look up at the sky. He saw a big bird, just like everyone else. He usually stayed deep in the beautiful boar forest, but now for some reason, he was flying near human settlements. Kana thought it was very strange. He flew to the city of Algria. When they noticed that the city could be in danger, Hannah noticed that if they didn't hurry to the city, this bird would destroy it. Kana convinced her that he would be able to handle this bird and told her that he would do everything himself using his wind and fire magic. The girl tried to attack it and then used a spear, but she failed. After that, the bird flew high towards them and started falling straight down. Tsukuru caught it just in time, and the girl was very grateful to him. Sanya saw how gracefully the young man reached out to support Kana, our hero. At that moment, the young man noticed that there was a monster behind them trying to attack the girls from behind. He tried to warn Hannah and Sanya to turn around. The girls saw a skeleton suddenly appear near them, and he was able to save them. I think it was a pretty dangerous place. The skeleton had checked this area before, and according to him, there were many monsters heading this way. Kana understood that no matter how strong their Goliath forces were, it wouldn't be enough, and the city was in great danger. Our hero lifted his sword, many died fighting against them, and Hannah was asked to prepare. The girl didn't understand what she needed to prepare for. Our hero didn't know how strong the monsters were, but there was no time to think about it. Besides, they had already done it before, so here, our hero unsheathed his sword, ready for battle. Kana asked me to hide behind him while Na decided to attack with his staff, saying he would burn them with his firestorm. After seeing Firestorm, Hana covered her sister, unable to believe what a strong girl she was. She truly was our hero. While drawing her sword, she also fought alongside Kana, even though they had also faced their own powers before. But it was nothing compared to their magical abilities. When the girls realized they couldn't help them fully due to their incomplete training, our hero warned them that they still had to fight and imagine it was a training session. The girls quickly followed our hero, ready to embark on the battle. Hana wore her silver elephant pendant, and our hero tried to help them by using a level 230 silver elephant correction. The silver elephant began attacking them, and Tsukuru told him that he would handle it, diverting his attention. Hana should immediately attack with her earth magic power, using her concentrated body strength and incredible speed to strike. In the next moment, the girl attacked her opponent, and both her arm and her opponent's body were shattered. Despite Hana getting promoted, she suffered a serious injury. Everyone rushed towards her while our hero watched from the side, talking to his sword. He reported that the girl's power had doubled and her body couldn't handle it. He thought people were indeed fragile. Our hero realized why Hana was easily defeated, so he decided to sacrifice himself for her. He went up to her and inquired about her food preferences. After witnessing the girl's injuries, he whipped up a miraculous dish. He warned her that if she didn't eat it, she would perish. Upon hearing this, Sanya grabbed a piece of the medicinal meat and attempted to feed her sister. Despite Hana's difficulty in moving, Sanya insisted she eat it and even placed a piece in her mouth. Miraculously, Hana's hand regrew and became whole again. Both sisters were astonished by this turn of events. Subsequently, Sanya encouraged Hana to finish the meal, and Hana apologized for the trouble caused. Our hero felt responsible for the situation and pondered on how to proceed. He was displeased by Hana's kindness towards her sister, considering the rigorous training she endured. However, he clarified to Hana that he assisted her out of necessity, as she couldn't heal on her own. Kana acknowledged this, and our hero noticed the lingering presence of the monster. They resolved to confront it once and for all. Our hero provided the sisters with a strengthening potion to prepare for battle. After consuming it, they geared up for the fight ahead. There is a level 220 Silperia in front of our hero, and this monster should now be their opponent. Sna is inspired by the battle and believes that these monsters should contact her in vain. The girl attacks her opponent and is promoted. Hana watched as her older sister fought recklessly, asking her to focus because these opponents were very agile and could hurt her. When she saw that they were indeed attacking, she thought it was disgusting, but she asked her sister to be careful because she hadn't fully recovered yet. Hana also noticed that their opponents were quite strong, explaining that it was because they didn't have any visible connections that strengthened their power. Our hero agreed with Base, who appeared behind them, but she still didn't have much experience. She was afraid she wouldn't be able to handle the rest of the monsters alone. It felt very strange that Tsukuru, who didn't get tired of the monsters, and vice versa, every time their power increased, it switched to the skeleton nearby. Our hero ordered his assistant to find out the reason why they were fighting alone, hoping that everything would be fine at that moment. When one of the opponents knocked her down, the girl fell to the ground, listening to her sister calling our hero, remembering her past life and her cold body of her lover, her younger sister, so she immediately rushed to attack and defend the girl. Our hero was injured while protecting San with his body. He stood in front of her, surprised that the young man gave up so easily. When Hana tried to protect them, she defeated Kana, while the opponent ran to our hero trying to find out if everything was okay with them. After that, everyone saw our hero handle the sauna blood and asked him not to worry because it was just a scratch. The girl apologized to him by saying that she had been careless, and our hero stroked her head and told her that she would recover quickly, as long as she wasn't hurt. Hearing how our hero treated her with care, of course, Sanya was surprised and looked questioningly at the young man turning away from the girl, reporting that there were still monsters left, so they should try harder and finish them all off. The girls listened to our hero, and after the battle they received the food he had prepared with his own hands. There was curry in front of them, and with burning eyes, Kana and Sanya were waiting for the party to start, preparing the small camp. Our hero sat at the table. The young man cooked everything for them that was on the table, telling them that there was enough food for everyone. They should have fun, eat slowly, and dessert would be ready soon. After receiving the dessert, after the main course, Kana was pleased with its size right in front of him. At that moment, Sanya saw this and wanted to try it, shouting about it throughout the forest. Hannah carefully approached her younger sibling and informed them that if they ate more than they should, they would get a stomachache. However, the younger sibling didn't care at all because there were plenty of heroes in front of them watching all this. They were very happy to see the girl enjoying her food. After that, they all went to sleep, and the young man used the protective key in their camp. At that moment, the sword was thinking about something that was bothering the young man. He had been acting strange since he met one of the sisters he had risked his life for. It was completely unlike him. Our hero didn't ask the sword to talk nonsense, but the sword explained that it was connected to him so he could feel his heart beating fast. In the sword's mind, he had definitely fallen in love with this girl. After laughing at the young man, Tsukuru reached for the sword. The sword told him to watch his tongue because this was not happening. The young man was very angry at his sword, explaining that it was just a joke. The sword decided to share his thoughts, but Tsukuru reacted so strongly that he almost woke up the girls with his shouting. So he asked him to calm down, but at that moment, our hero felt something and so on. All the girls, when they woke up, jumped out of their beds trying to figure out what was happening outside the tent.